start your day. This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the...
Hayawi.
No, what you are seeing in full motion, Sister Ndu, is a Raila fan. Okay, endelea. This one, a diehard Raila fan.
Total.
Kabisa, maximum.
How you doing? Welcome to the Situation Room. It's the Friday. The Friday.
It's the Friday.
That we've been talking about.
The Friday, the last month, Yes.
This is the day that the Lord has made.
We shall be glad
and rejoice. If you're happy and you know,
clap your hand.
Hand. Clap your one hand.
Okay. If you're happy and you know, clap your hand.
City, good morning.
Good morning, Eric.
You're well today?
Well, I was well yesterday, and I was grateful for being well yesterday. I'm well today, and I'm still equally grateful for well. By the way, Eric, this cold is not as negative as we think. If you give it sufficient time, there is one particular shrub that doesn't grow easily, but it grows well in the cold. It's called the Kenya shilling. If you look at Ndu's table, you'll find some growing over there.
Oh, really? Ish. It's because of the cold. You know, she's using it as a handkerchief. Yeah, these are her napkins.
Silly.
Come in the form of banknotes. You're doing that well. No, wow.
Hey, well done.
Ish.
I'm half hour now.
Jerry.
Okay.
Yeah, everything.
Make we leave them like that.
Did I tell you somebody asked me this question last time you had this hairstyle? They asked me, how long did it take you to get this hair on your head?
Somebody asked you how long it took me to get my hair done.
To ask you.
Actually, the question you ask is how many people did it take to get that done?
And how long would it take to getting it up there? Okay, and then removing it.
Let's make it an equation.
How many questions are people asking like
it's
this?
It's the same
like
question, just permutations of it. If it was one person doing it, how long would it take?
If it was one person doing it, it would have taken 8 hours.
Okay.
One person would have taken 8 hours.
Yeah,
Eric, I have long hair, and then
Eric, when I told you that is the question is how many people.
All right.
I knew what I was talking about.
Next question.
So next coefficient. How many people would it take to do this thing in 1 hour?
And how long would it take?
It only took 3 people, and it took 3 hours.
So
okay, so here is KCEC math question number 1.
Yes.
If it takes 3 people 3 hours to do Ndu's very small hair.
No. It's not the hair. It's the head.
The head. How many people would it take to do this hair in 1 hour?
6.
Use the formula provided.
And then, using a clearly labeled diagram, draw and show how those people would need to be positioned.
Yes.
For greatest efficiency. Now we now moving to engineering mathematics.
Kabisa now for
We're looking at if it's not just about people.
It's efficiency.
It's efficiency. Where would they need to be? Ndu needs to continue breathing. All those things.
It was a problem. And you know, there's that one who starts and then the one who comes to finish.
Yes,
Start, finish, and then they move in some kind of symbiotic.
You know, this question has 20
cycling.
marks, but everything you've said so far occupies 15 marks. The other 5 marks. Okay, what is the optimum size of a head that you require?
Or what is the length of hair that you require to be able to? Do you see? They wanted to cut it. I said, no, don't cut it, because if you cut it, you would then cut my hair. So sorry, it cannot be short. Many things. You're right. Engineering is involved, physics. So there's your answer. 3 hours.
Okay.
3
Any
people.
time.
That was question number 1.
A.
1. Question number 1A 2. How many people will it take to remove to undo this hair?
I was thinking of something that actually would take that question from the realm of 20 marks to 30 marks. Okay? The cost of doing such hair traditionally is X. Okay? How would you then ensure the efficient and speedy acquisition of the said funds so that this... Okay.
Hey, yeah, me, I'm still on the cost.
So now we are at resource mobilization.
Yes.
Okay. Well, welcome to the show, everybody. Today we'll have a number of conversations. There's a conversation that we started yesterday, and we wanted to have a guest on, and we, for technical reasons, were not able to have her on. Today we are going to have it. Okay? And this is with regards to teenage pregnancies. And what kind of pandemic are they calling it?
A shadow.
The shadow pandemic. And then we will have a conversation about the silent pandemic, which is slightly different. Yeah. And we'll have more conversations to have. Let us start with COVID. What COVID is doing in the world.
In the world, with in order for us to look at what's happening in the world, we still have to, take a look at what's going on in India, guys. It's not a good situation at all. And what different outlets such as the BBC is calling this a horror story on repeat. India's COVID crisis. India has now recorded well over 200,000 deaths, the 4th highest death toll in the world. And yesterday, they then reported the highest death toll on a single day ever recorded since COVID, and it was over 4,000 deaths having been recorded in a day. Beyond that, they recorded 2 things: the highest number of COVID cases in any country in the world on one day, and at the same time, the highest number of COVID deaths in the world on a particular day. Is what was recorded yesterday. So when you thought that it was getting better, or at least they were trying to see if they could manage the situation, things have actually now literally, they've gone out of the whole house, not even the window. It's done.
It's just chaotic.
Yeah.
And then they're also having another problem. So there's a problem of healthcare, getting access to healthcare. No oxygen, no beds, no ICU, no crematoriums. All those, you're sick, even getting cremated is a problem. Your body has got to queue.
Yes, and this is in the outside crematoriums.
Makeshift crematoriums, right? Then also they're having a problem with their vaccination drive, such that in several places they're running out of vaccines. And this is India. The world's pharmacy is actually running short of vaccines. They intend to continue vaccinating people, but they are not producing as many vaccines as they need to meet the demand of the people. Okay. So in some cases where they want to vaccinate X number of people per day, they're unable to because they don't have. The supply is not good enough. So you can imagine if the people who are producing vaccines for the world are basically saying, look, we need to ramp up our production to meet the demand in our own country. What else is happening to the rest of the world? 2, what did Joe Biden say in this 100-day in office State of the Union address?
Well, what did he say?
With regards to vaccine. I intend to donate vaccines to India. It's an emergency. It's unfolding.
It needs to happen
And
now.
all you're talking about is intention. Anyway,
It's not a good position at all.
America is basically just not coming out clean in this particular one.
And look at the numbers that we talked about. 2 days ago, India was at 17,290,000. Today, 3 days later, 18,754,984. Over 1 million cases in the last 3 days. This is not a joke. And 208,313 deaths. 200,000, again, 3 days ago. 8,000 people have died in the last 72 hours. 8,000 people. And we're not talking about the cases like we see in Kenya where we say, okay, we're getting 21 deaths, and 8 of those deaths are deaths that occurred 30 days ago. These numbers are live numbers that are coming out of India. There are people who are dying on the day and being reported that day. 8,000 people in 72 hours is not a joke. If it continues like that, you are getting close to Holocaust numbers of people who died over a long period of time. That number of people dying in a short period of time. This is not even trying to play catch up. This is not even trying to assess a situation. This is a bad situation that's being relived over and over. And the over and over we're talking about is every 24 hours. It's not good at all.
You were talking
Every minute.
Eric, you're talking about the US. The aid that Russia promised has arrived. Not today, it arrived. UK
Arrived.
So,
Saudi Arabia, their oxygen is already being used.
Yes, exactly.
America, we promise, we intend to.
Well, what it often means is that they're now trying to figure out how to extract some sort of...
Something
in
return.
By the way, you must understand that when people talk about leveraging and influencing, it is devoid of these moralistic views that we may sometimes put across in the show here. No, it's hard-nosed. Okay, fine, we know you have a problem. You also know you have a problem.
Yes.
We are willing to help you now. It's here. You say when it starts arriving, but in the meantime, can you also...
ensure this and the other.
Yes.
Well, while some countries are vaccinating their people rigorously, Kenya still to reach 1 million people in terms of vaccinations. 853,000, according to the Ministry of Health, and 81 persons have been vaccinated against coronavirus disease. So even that 1,080,000 that got here, we're still to finish
Those
that.
are people who've been vaccinated with the AstraZeneca vaccine.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
The others who've been vaccinated by or have received vaccination from other vaccines, we do not know, do we?
Oh, no. It's counted here.
How do we know it's
Ministry
counted?
of Health tells you, and they give you
They
a
also add
breakdown.
those that received.
They add those from Sputnik 5. They tell you about AstraZeneca. It's broken down properly. So combined.
Where I'm going with
We're
the
less than
question,
1 million.
where I'm going with this, question is how accurate is that data? If it was AstraZeneca, I understand. The ones who are dishing it out and the records are being kept. The others, how do you know?
They have to keep a record of...
How many others?
You see, it's Sputnik 5 that we know of.
Right.
I am certain. If the Chinese in this country, the Chinese vaccine is also in the country. Look, it's contained in a vial. It's something you can carry. It's not as though it's a 40-foot container. It can come in luggage.
like this.
What? Did I say something that bordered on being racist?
It's just okay. So somebody has gone to China, gotten some vaccine,
Yes.
put it in the vial, in some refrigeration,
Cooler box.
in some cooler box. It
Yes.
has come. It has passed through JKIA.
It'll pass.
It was not detected at all at JKIA.
Even if it was detected.
And this is not one. So if going by your argument, which is saying that this number we should be adding some 50, 100 or so, those are many.
The point that I'm trying to make here,
there's
the-
Magendo.
Actually, that's really what I'm getting at. I'm trying to say that this is an approximation, okay? There's nothing exact about it. And the reason I'm saying there's nothing exact.
Yeah.
We don't really have accurate information as to what other types of vaccines are there in the country. Sputnik made the headlines because it went through this and this and that and the other. Okay? Now, if I come with 10 of those and say it's for my family and it's for domestic consumption.
You need to go through some verification process.
I'm trying to say this, that
Hata kama tuko wabaya,
it's not a question of being wabaya. It's if somebody comes in with vials, do you really think?
So what you're saying is that these numbers that we are being given, you can't be sure how many much more
I
there
am
are.
saying they're a good approximation.
Okay, but it's not complete.
No, it's not absolute.
Okay.
Well, even with the numbers that they know have been given out for AstraZeneca, you don't know whether those are 800,000 people or 800,000 vials.
Thank you, Eric.
Some people could have received their second dose already by now of AstraZeneca. Go to Bagathi. By the time that SMS comes, go to the other facility and get. Time for a break at 17 minutes after 6. Kenya's biggest conversation continues live streaming on SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Say hello. We'll be saying hello to you. In the meantime, check out jobs.standardmedia.co.ke, this website that has very many jobs that have been advertised there. Log on and see whether there's any job that suits you. And even if you don't find any, you can register and you'll receive alerts whenever a job that suits you is advertised. Jobs.standardmedia.co.ke.
24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
The realest and craziest couple are now on your screens. Terrence and Chebi are bringing you top celebrities and trendsetters on Thursday Night Live.
All right,
It's
let's see what it
double
has
the
in store
fun
this Friday
and double
morning.
the laughter.
Looking into
Every
Nairobi,
Thursday
mostly cloudy
at 10
conditions at
p.m.
17,
on
highs of 25 today. It's mostly cloudy in Nyeri at 14, highs of 24. 26 will be the high in Nakuru, where it's mostly clear as well at 15 degrees. Clear skies in Eldoret at 13, highs of 25. 29 the high in Kisumu. It's lightly raining at 20. Clear conditions in Kakamega at 18, highs of 28, coming back down to lows of 18, and it's 30 what will be the high in Mombasa today. Light rain at 26. It's also raining slightly in Malindi. Highs of 30 and lows of 26. Cloudy conditions in Kampala at 19, highs of 27. We'll see highs of 30 in Dar es Salaam, 23 at the moment and raining still. 11 degrees and also raining in Johannesburg and going to highs of 16 and lows of 9. 32 will be the high, slightly cooler in Lagos today at 26, mostly clear conditions. It's raining in Kinshasa this Friday morning at 24. It'll be the low for today. It'll go to highs of 31. Beijing at 12 is sunny. It'll go to highs of 16 today and lows of 5. Clear conditions in Paris at 7. That'll be the low today, going to highs of 14. 13 will be recorded as a high in London today, where it's 4 and clear. It'll come down to lows of 3. Cloudy conditions in New York Thursday night. Coming into Friday, we'll see highs of 23 and lows of 15.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
20 minutes after
94.4.
People are online. Who are they?
Okay, everybody's tuning in this morning. Mohammed Yusuf, good morning. It says the biggest political show in Eastern and Central Africa. Well, Karibu Sana. Vincent, good morning, Situation Room team. Eric, sorry, your bet drank water. Just like that. Don't forget, I had the same. Mokenya, which has put us in the same WhatsApp group. Sijui nani atanunulia mwenzake Luko Zedleo. So you
Run.
and Vincent.
Kiliumana. But don't worry, Vincent. Now let's bet for Supreme Court judge.
There's something.
Same name. Same name. William Ouko, Supreme Court.
All right. Abud Mfalme is tuning from Dallas, Texas. Malindi sub-county. Aha. Kimotho, you Dorcas got it right today. Tuned Hadi Tamati. Huh? Good morning, chaps, she says. Dagyo Gusa, good morning, my very good people. Situation Room, I'm grateful we're finishing the week well. Yes, that's true. Ndu. Eric and Dr. Muga tuned in from Migosi, Kisumu. Right. Moses Kashari, top 200 companies in Kenya need to invest their work in vaccine, food donations, and 3-month salary cushioning. Kotu boss is no longer for workers but for political gains. Okay. So Moses has woken up with agenda this morning. Bade Ashley tuned in from Macha. Good morning. Kenya needs to invest in science, not purchasing. And that's what he continues to say. That's Moses. Oscar Henry says, good morning. Mercy Wekesa tuned in as well. Joseph Hightower tuned in as well. Cyprian Moura tuned in from Nakuru County, ready for the show. Karibu Sana. Robert Mbogo tuned in from Mombasa. And Noah Nasiali is tuned in as well. Evans Juma, Mombasa Road, tuned in. And Jacob at Lucina. Good morning, guys. Tuned in from Diani Beach in Ukunda. And Kisumu Kibos is where Jeffrey Muchama is tuned in from. Karibuni Sana Kila Mtu.
Karibuni Sana. Muhammad Yusuf is also there saying, preparing to tune in to SpiceFM. Okay, just tune in now. I hope the preparation is done. That was 5 minutes ago.
Okay.
CT, Friday's proverb.
Right. A man who chases 2 rabbits catches neither.
A man who chases 2 rabbits catches neither. Okay.
This proverb.
Mtaka yote,
No.
kukosa
Unless the
yote.
rabbits are joined at the
There are
hip.
people who chase 2 rabbits.
Unless the rabbits are
And
joined
they
at the hip.
catch.
Yeah, they do. In fact, they probably end up catching 3.
Or they use one to catch the other. They use one to lay a trap for the second one.
And they may even get 3 instead of 2.
Eric, don't worry. The hunter becomes the hunted.
Mumaliza. Okay, let's look at the headlines.
Okay, shall we?
Yes.
Big story today on the front page of the Standard. Last week, we talked about these 4 gentlemen who had gone missing when they'd gone to have lunch in Kitengela. Gone missing, nobody knew of their whereabouts. Today, the mystery behind the disappearance of 4 men 12 days ago deepened when 3 bodies were found dumped in Murang'a. As the men's families came to terms with their brutal end, questions persisted over their clinical execution and disposal of bodies more than 100 kilometers away. So many questions are being asked now in terms of what happened. 3 of them, at least, have been found. 2 identified as 2 of these gentlemen. 1 yet to be identified, but all indications are pointing one of them is still missing. So it's the families of Elijah Obwong and Benjamin Amachembai were last evening struggling to come to terms with the brutal end after their bodies were found 100 kilometers away from where they were last seen alive. So 2 of their colleagues, Brian Oduor and Jack Ocheng, are still missing, though a 3rd body was found close to Mbai's. It, however, has not been identified as of last evening. All right. Some family members accused the police, suggesting they had something to do with it, because now there are speculations that how did bodies get away from, wherever they were, and then to a county which is not within the diseased zone. So it was somebody who had clearance to move these bodies. That's one of the speculations that's coming about. Officers distanced themselves from the matter. Family members also turned their wrath on the media for sensationalizing the incident. My cousin had been in and out of the police station, and the way they disappeared, we can only think police had a hand in it. This according to James Owiti, who is Obwong's relative. Right? Okay, so we're looking at bodies that then were retrieved from the Mavioya River in Murang'a County, and one of the people who is a sand harvester there, those are the ones who found this body initially. And they called the police. They found the first body. It had no visible injuries except a small spot on the forehead likened to a gunshot. Obwong's friend Mbai was identified by his relatives at the General Cargo Funeral Home in Thika Town. Central Police Regional Commissioner Titus Ndongo said Mbai's body was spotted lying beside the road at Gakoi Forest in Gatundu North by a water company official who was driving through the Thika Magumu Road on the 20th of April. The relatives yesterday said they were fearful to talk about their son's death since they did not know who killed him and the motive behind his death. So the 3rd body was then which is yet to be identified, was found. This is the one that was found by a sand harvester, and it was in a sack tied at the top. One of the bodies had the hands chopped off at the wrists. Another one had deep scars on the wrists, suggesting that they had been handcuffed for a long period of time. So this is what we're looking at now. I positively identified 2 of them. The 3rd one yet to be identified, but it's suggestive that it was one of them. And then the last one, yet to be found. But the missing bodies, or the missing people, are now dead. And the police have started their investigations in terms of what happened. There's also, of course, the families having heard these rumors that some or more, a number of these gentlemen allegedly were in a criminal gang, and that is why their lives were taken. But the families are denying this and saying, unless they were in company of bad people, they were not bad people.
But the families rarely know what everyone does.
At every single moment.
No, you cannot tell. You know, this is the sad thing, because these stories, I find it particularly heart-wrenching when you're thinking, these are young people in the prime of their lives.
Yeah.
Okay? The police are easy to blame on such matters, but these things tend to be a little more complicated than just saying so and so. If, and the operative word here is if someone is involved in underhand dealings, one of the things that is a hallmark of underhand deals is sometimes they go wrong.
Yeah.
And when they go wrong, heads roll, literally.
Kabisa.
Remember, Mboi Committee,
Yep.
okay? Land buying company. I have never witnessed the number of people being killed because of the relation to one company. I have never. Someone dies before you know it, someone else has died. Somebody else has been elected. Then, my goodness. You have to ask, what on earth is happening here?
Yeah.
Who was offended and why were they offended and what was done to cause this offense? But what is certain is some offense occurred and some people determined that this was not an offense that was going to be discussed.
Yep.
This one was an offense that could only end one way, whatever it was.
Interestingly, records show Mbai had at least 2 pending criminal cases in court. This is one of the gentlemen. One case of robbery was pending at the Kibera Law Court, and another one was at Mavoko Law Court. Mbai was last year in January arrested alongside 6 other men accused of belonging to a gang that allegedly robbed a man of 900,000 shillings after they trailed him from the KCB Buruburu branch, broke into his car that was parked at the parking lot, and made away with the cash. According to the DCI, the suspects executed the crime by posing as customers and joining the victim in window shopping for a car. Yesterday, police spokesman Charles Koskei denied police involvement in the killing. He said, "We have nothing to do with this issue. The matter is under investigation, and you can take it from me. This is not the work of the police."
The most we can do is offer our condolences to the family. Because it doesn't matter what, the families are in mourning and they're going to mourn their
It is
loved ones.
tragic, it is sad, it is
Yes.
painful.
That's the bottom line. Now, investigations hopefully will unravel what exactly happened, or even if there's a background to this particular case and the 4 gentlemen, then let it also come out. In the meantime, let's take a look at what's happening on the roads this morning at 29 and a half minutes past 6. We'll be looking at more headlines shortly.
"24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
We've been all through it, you know. We go to school, study hard, get the much-deserved grades and celebrate our graduation. Then reality hits us. We get to the job market and we simply don't know where to start off. Thankfully, by visiting jobs.standardmedia.co.ke, your next career breakthrough could be a click away. Get the best in career advice, employment opportunities, internships, part-time jobs, CV writing and interview coaching. Give your career the much-needed lift on jobs.standardmedia.co.ke.
Okay, so today was the day that the stretch between the Nyeri Stadium roundabout and Bunyala Road roundabout would have been opened because the work had been finished. Sorry, it's not going to happen. We have received a notice from the Kenya National Highways Authority that construction is going to take place and they are extending the period with effect from today for the next 21 days. So before the 20th of March, accessibility to that road, no, not going to happen. You're going to have to keep using... Sorry? 20th of May, yes. Did I say March?
Yeah.
I beg your pardon. May. You can't use it till May. So keep using Langata Road and then joining Aerodrome or going towards Bagathi Way. That's the way into the city. And so prepare for that this morning. All right. The transition from Railways Terminal to Green Park Terminal continues today, at least until 9 o'clock. Public service vehicles will dock and bake and board at the former Luna Park. So until 9 o'clock, that's what's happening. You need to get your vehicles. They're not taking them at Railways, going towards that area. In a half an hour, we'll take a look at what's happening in the city across other roads. SpiceFM KE, let us know if you get stuck anywhere or if there's something happening we should know about. Text us as well on 40127.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4.
10. And this is some nice photo taken in 1998. And these were the members of the Federation of Women Lawyers Kenya, FIDA, at that point. There are a number of ladies here. Monica Mbaru, Winnie Kamande, Violet Mavisi, Judith Thongori, Jena Nyango, Joyce Majiwa, Ambassador Jean Kamau, Njoki Ndongo, Rosemary Mwenja, Abida Aroni, Anne Mululu, Alice Wahome, Martha Koome, Nancy Baraza, Professor Betty Murungi. Those are names that you hear today and you recognize. Okay. Martha Koome is the nominee for Chief Justice. Right? Mm-hmm. Betty Baraza was the first female Deputy Chief Justice in the new constitution, right? Nancy Baraza. Professor Betty Murungi is renowned, and she was part of the TJRC. We have Family Court Judge Abida Ali Aroni, Supreme Court Judge Joki Ndungu, Kandara MP Alice Wahome. Who are the others? Judith Thongori, renowned family lawyer. What basically the story is saying, these are the great women who set the wheels of justice in motion for women and the marginalized, and they've risen up the ranks, and they're where they are today. 1998, 2021.
Well deserved.
Completely, right?
Hard fought for, hard earned.
Totally. Totally. And I think it's a very good thing that, you see the kind of where they've risen to up to today. Lovely. Yeah.
There's a story on page 5. Huh? Remember the standoff between Ministry of Health, Treasury?
Yeah.
Well, that story, a new angle has suddenly appeared. We alluded to it, but we weren't certain. Page 5 of The Nation. That same page, 2 stories. How shady deals fuels US-Kenya HIV and AIDS drug row. Then the other one, board dismissed after Uhuru meets Blinken. Okay? Now, of course, you'll be asking who Blinken is, isn't it?
He's the US Secretary of State.
Yes, exactly.
So, the first one. What's happening? Why is the US involved in shady deals? Or what was it?
Oh, wow.
All right. This is what is reported to have been said.
Right.
We have had problems with KEMSA, and as you know, concerns about corruption that I know the government is working to end. We have an obligation to our taxpayers when we are spending their money, said Mr. Blinken.
Okay.
He spoke directly about KEMSA and said, we had a problem with taking things through KEMSA. Okay? Now, the other article says U.S. aid has registered its biggest victory in the standoff with Kenya Medical Supplies Authority over distributing HIV/AIDS drugs after government sent home its entire KEMSA board. I remember the headline was, board dismissed after Uhuru meets Blinken.
Right.
All right? Now, the decision came barely hours after President Uhuru met the U.S. Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, who expressed concern over the lack of accountability at KEMSA.
Okay.
Taxpayers' money.
Responsibility, accountability. And because of that, the way it's looking, we can't allow you to continue doing this.
Essentially, it is we are willing to continue working with KEMSA.
But
These people we are not working with.
So we continue and you remove them, or a resultant action then was the president disbanding the board.
Well,
you know, me, I'm just looking at this thing and saying, okay, so somebody has complained about your hair, and what have you gone and done? You've gone and cut the hair and put on a hat.
But the thing is it true
No.
that they misbehaving?
This is different. Somebody has complained about your hair, so what have you gone and done? You've gone and worn a headscarf. Done
not dealt with the
nothing
problem.
about the hair. Chairman of KEMSA is now chairman of the Communications Authority.
a very sensitive authority.
Oh, you're just taking him somewhere else.
No, this one is sensitive. Communication Authority, very sensitive.
Sensitive. The rest of the board members have just been replaced by new board members.
And I dare say, if you give it time, you may find them in other boards.
Yes.
Not very long from now.
There are investigations that were going on. The management of KEMSA, apart from 3 who are on suspension, the rest, everybody else is working at KEMSA. Sasa hii ni nini?
Same monkeys, same forest.
Everything. All you're bringing is a different type of banana. Look, it doesn't matter. Is it? It may have some consequence in terms of the new board members coming in and saying but then give it a few months. If the problem was in the corporate governance at KEMSA that led to issues of USAID and the US government having friction with KEMSA, that's one. Here it is about concerns of corruption. Corruption, unless you're saying that the management, the board was in charge of corruption, what have you done? The president ordered investigations at KEMSA last year. Said, let's get a report within 30 days. Those 30 days, moving nowhere. Parliament started investigating the issue of KEMSA. The Health Committee on Parliament released its report, blah, 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 blah. The Public Accounts Committee of Parliament is still conducting its investigations, calling in people. Yesterday, they heard from the director of this company called what? Killig.
They even spoke to
And then somebody who had become a signatory to an account, and if this is the Jubilee Vice Chairman, David Murathe, also appeared before them. So this is what the director of Killig said. Wilbrod Gatei Gashoka, who together with Chinese national Xi Jinping incorporated Killig Limited that later bagged the contract, told MPs that Mr. Murathe was invited to the farm to assure his Chinese partner that he was connected to powerful people in government. This is what he was saying. I'm sure even you MPs have dealt with the Chinese. They respect a person in authority and position. Killig was awarded a 4 billion shillings tender to supply PPEs. It then subcontracted Entech Technology Limited, a Chinese company. The Chinese firm, according to Mr. Gatei, demanded assurance that it would get paid by Killig after KEMSA released the amount. Okay? So Killig were like, okay, we want you guys to supply us. The new company called Entech says, but how do we know you guys are going to supply? We want a guarantee. Guarantee is somebody that is known to you. This is Mr. Murathe. You have dealt with Mr. Murathe before. Here he is. He is saying, I know these guys. Najua hawa tu. Just deal with them. When Mr. Murathe himself appeared before the committee, he said, well, yeah, you see, I have dealt with this. I know this particular company. Those people are known to me. I help them to get business. Do you ask for benefits from a friend that you have helped?
Yes. In fact, I understand the benefits I'm going to get before I help. If it's a business deal, I have to be very clear about the benefits I will derive from. It's a business deal. It isn't, I'm not helping him take a relative abroad for treatment that cannot be found in Kenya. No. It's business. The money is going to be made.
So you see an opportunity for yourself.
Look,
what's in it for me?
The cog that I has is my influence.
Yes.
Most certainly.
Yeah, you pay.
I have to know what I'm getting.
Killig came to me to assure Entech to agree to supply it with PPEs, while Entech wanted an assurance that it would be paid. That is how I came in. I was just the middle guy. I'm a guy that's known to both. And I'm a guy who's trusted by both.
So there's nothing weird
Now, I
here.
come in and say, my word is my bond.
Yes.
I know these guys, they can supply. I know these guys, they can pay you if you supply. There.
What is being described here is the activities of a broker. And brokers get commission. Known.
So
A broker,
what is a
who,
broker?
a broker who doesn't get a commission is an anomaly. It will be very strange that you broker, you use the one commodity they don't have. It's called your influence. And to get a deal that will end up in them receiving money and you do not get any of it, and there's no consideration.
This is to the tune of 4 billion shillings. Remember the other day we were having a problem with doing an invoice of 200 million.
Yeah.
4 billion is how many zeros?
9.
9.
9 zeros after the 4. 1, 2, 3,
4,
4, 5,
comma.
6.
0, 0, 0,
Comma.
comma. 0, 0, 0, comma. 0, 0, 0, dot 0, 0.
Yes.
I am telling you, if I landed such...
You'll even be walking on clouds.
Who is Martha Koome? I'll buy her. What? What?
Madman.
4 billion.
No, he
You-
is
I
actually,
start writing that invoice.
he's actually
I step out and I
dramatizing.
slap someone. I go back and
Take me to court, I'll pay the fine.
Yes.
And then you send someone with a banker's check, said, yeah, I slapped him.
Let's just settle
What's
this
the
thing
fine?
one
Let's
time. How much
not
is it?
waste the court's time. What's the maximum fine for this thing? I don't want
How
a
much?
discount.
Just tell me how much. Then I can even add something for your time.
Yes.
That's what they talk.
And by the way, this is my phone number.
Yeah.
If you
not running
that
away.
problem you have with school fees, if you're still having it,
You come see
call
me.
me.
Don't worry.
Come see me. Hey.
People are saying it like it doesn't happen.
No, look. You don't
Yeah.
peddle influence as a charity. There are cases where influence is used just for the common good, not in business deals. No. Because I know you. In fact, because I know you,
That's the reason why.
yes, I am able to, because then I have some form of guarantee that I will get my share.
Yes.
And then there's something that Murade has been repeating for a while. He keeps bringing in, these people who are doing this business, these are people who do other business with the deputy president.
They do.
Gatei says, I am not a relative of the deputy president.
As though you didn't know. Let me just tell you.
Ati who? Of course I know Ruto. See, he's the deputy president. But I am not a relative of it. How am I linked? Kenya yetu hii, my friend.
There's something good, though, about this. Huh? There's something good. Huh? The public is actually being treated to a scenario where things aren't working quite the way the players had hoped. You see, a lot of these things are done in the shadows. This one is no longer fully in the shadows. There are things we may not know, but at least it's out in the open and it's somewhere they had hoped it wouldn't be.
Yeah.
If your name is mentioned in print media, it's talked about once, that's gone. But then you're being called to the a parliamentary committee to answer
Sit down
question,
and answer.
then it changes. Now, again, why don't these people just become brave and say, yes, I know this person. Yes, I have done business with them. If you've done business, well, you've done business.
Yeah.
No one is implying you've done anything shady. But when you behave that way, then we have to ask, okay, so what is this thing that you do that you don't really want to have the full glare of sunshine on? So it is you who raises the questions. By the way, on this particular matter, there are details of even how they got it. Look, by the time KCB is ready to fund the project, it means your papers were in order.
Completely.
Yes. It means they figured, yeah,
It was not contraband. You were not dealing with
this
it.
is this
illegal
sound business.
trade.
Yes, we can do whatever is required to finance it. So why is it then that everything around it and the responses that we keep reading have to be, it's like people who feel you shouldn't be asking them these questions. Why are you asking me this uncomfortable, this inconvenient question? Yes. By the
Time
way,
for a break. 7:15, and then we'll look at other headlines. Good morning.
24/7 around the world non-stop. This is Spice FM.
It's time to answer questions that are worthwhile. The Big Quiz Show is here. Register to play from the comfort of your home by SMSing the word JOIN to 23774. Then watch the live show on KTN every Sunday from 8 p.m. where you could have a chance to win a mealie. The fastest and most accurate answers are guaranteed to win. The Big Quiz Show, Sundays at 8 p.m. only on KTN.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM.
13 minutes to 7. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. So, there was a story you wanted to share.
Remember, when we were talking about vaccines and their rollout, there were individuals who didn't quite agree with everyone who thought vaccines were such a beautiful, wonderful thing. One of them was a doctor who is associated with the Kenya Catholic Doctors Association.
Chairman.
In fact, he was the chairman. Unfortunately, regrettably, the gentleman has passed away, and from none other, as is being reported in The Nation on page 7, from COVID-related complications.
Oh, yeah.
You see, sometimes I feel that this what Dr. Stephen Karanja probably represented, I'm not sure. I'm not sure about many things. I'm not sure whether somebody who is actually a trained medical doctor would actually be against vaccinations wholesale without having, if I may say so, a good reason for why he feels that way.
And it was not just COVID.
No,
Dr.
it wasn't.
Karanja was against vaccines. He was against the polio vaccine that was being rolled out earlier. He was among those who were championing against, what was the other one?
The HPV.
The HPV vaccine as well.
Yeah.
He basically was against vaccines. But he was not a COVID denier. And that we need to be very clear on that.
Yes.
He was not a COVID denier. He knew about COVID and he was saying, yes, there's COVID and there are measures that we need to take. Wash your hands, keep social distance, use all remedies that we've been given, do the dawa, boost your vitamin C, exercise, all those things. He was just saying, vaccine?
You know, when someone raises these questions, I think instead of damning them and vilifying them, why not to say, okay, how can we respond to these issues this person is raising so that they feel that their responses or the queries or their misgivings have been responded to adequately.
Yeah.
That has always been an option. But it's unfortunate that this world of research, let me say we are not really very good at communicating what we do, how we do it, in a way that a layperson can easily understand. We often speak to ourselves and to people who do what we do.
And assuming that everybody else who's consuming this information understands what it is
It's
that
such
you're
from the
giving
standpoint,
out.
if I can understand it, so can you. And the answer
Yeah.
is no, actually, no, it doesn't quite work.
It doesn't
that
work
way.
that way.
Yes. Because your understanding is based on years of progressively getting to know certain things in details. And you want to present it as a one-off to someone who's never heard of these things or has a vague idea about it. They clearly won't understand it the way you do. Yeah, there is that need for people in that world to progressively take the time to let the general public understand what they do, why they do it, and how they arrive at the conclusions that they do. It will significantly lessen the resistance that you often see being brought about by people who, I think some genuinely just don't understand. And since they don't understand it, they're not going to support it.
It's sad that the good doctor has passed on and he has died of COVID. And it's sad that he had said what he was saying. I was not one of those who listened to him. I got my vaccine. But still, it's sad. So BBI story, what happened? BBI divides lawmakers. Page 4 of the Standard today, and it's talking about what transpired in Parliament yesterday. Lawmakers were treated to intrigues surrounding a company. No, not that one. I'm looking about page 4. 10 issues yesterday stood out in heated debate in Parliament on the amendment bill to the Constitution. The acrimonious debate in both the National Assembly and the Senate, marked with numerous points of order, saw a section of ODM leader Raila Odinga's allies and those of DP William Ruto dismantle the bill, despite calling for its approval. So, taking center stage was the issue of the 70 new constituencies, the cost implication of the bloated parliament, the principles of separation of power, and the role of the judiciary ombudsman. Nominated MP Cecily Mbarire says there are very dangerous amendments in the bill that will be real issues many years down the line. The independence of the three arms of government truly face the wrath of the dictator regimes the minute we allow the executive to control parliament and the judiciary. It's the beginning of the end of our democracy, according to her. TJ Kajwang would be behind bars for treason for participating in the mock swearing in of Raila in 2018. That's what she was saying. MPs also poked holes in the plan to raise the National Assembly numbers to 453 before nominations and Senate to 94. So all those things were coming up in the whole story. And
can I provide an analogy here?
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Sometimes when an issue is politicized, one can actually lose the import of what is actually being discussed.
Yeah.
Israel did something that most people didn't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
They took a calculated risk, paid for, and contributed to the development of a vaccine or vaccines. But more importantly, they prepaid for a vaccine. So they got it even before it met the required structural approvals. Yes, that such medicinal products go through before people can use them. Okay? Now, the argument that was brought forth and is attributed to the Prime Minister, he said they looked at the cost of what it was going to, what the country would bear in doing this, to the alternative, which was the country succumbing to COVID deaths in large numbers, people out of jobs. He said when they looked at that, they realized paying in advance was cheap. Compared to the alternative, it was cheap. Now, I say this because I want to ask the question, even as we have this debate, to me, what is fundamental? The proponents of the BBI, can they clearly document and explain how this alternative is a less expensive alternative to what we already have? This is really what I'm trying to say. Fine, listen to the argument. I have put forth the argument as I've seen it myself.
Yeah.
But is it?
In all ways.
Yes,
And
is
You
it?
can say it'll cost more, but it's less expensive.
Yes.
In the
long run.
long run, in the bigger picture.
And the benefits would be
Yeah.
yes. Because when it's politicized, what you're hearing is people trying to put their best foot forward in what serves their interest. But you're not really, you actually diverted from the focal issue of, okay, this thing. Because if you look at the papers today, there's all this talk now of who says what, they want to change the other. But let's put that aside. Something of importance has happened in South Africa. The Zulu kingdom have actually lost their monarch.
Oh, no.
Remember, she was made queen, monarch of the Zulu kingdom, after her husband, King Goodwill Zwelithini. I think I've got that one right. I'm sure it's pronounced differently, but I'm going to pronounce it as it is written. Okay? Now, her name was, well...
Okay. Queen.
No. The queen is okay. The name isn't difficult to pronounce, or even... It's She Yiwe, okay? Matfombi Dlamini.
Not difficult.
Not difficult at all.
Yes, I had to say it slowly. Yes, she was 65 when she died. And the family are distraught. She was actually enthroned a month ago. So she's dead just a month after she got to that particular position.
Her husband died.
The husband had died a while back. But when her husband died, which was also not very long ago, then she was made monarch. Now remember, she was queen of an 11 million strong nation of people. Yes, the largest ethnic group in that part of the country, or the world rather. Yes.
Ole kwao.
It is.
Talking about death. You know the way you travel and then you arrive at your destination and you look for your luggage and you're told there's a mishap somewhere here and there. Your luggage is now being traced back at a certain airport. There's a family in Kakamega that has had to cancel burial arrangements of their relative who died in Saudi Arabia on the 29th of January. This was after an airline left the body of their kin in Germany following a mix-up. The body was supposed to arrive at the JKIA. The family had made all the arrangements. They traveled from Lugari constituency, arrived at JKIA on Tuesday night to receive the body, but they were shocked when they were informed it was missing. They had come all the way, everything, plus a hearse. The staff appeared confused, and then we asked for the body, and then they were like, okay, we have realized that it was left in Germany.
Mix up. I don't understand. There were many.
Lost luggage.
There were many bodies. You didn't know where it was supposed to be going because it's not as though you're going to
Baggage mix up.
overlook
Maybe
a body.
Start with there were many coffins.
That's what I was going to ask. Were there many coffins in the same place and they did not know they put the wrong tag on the wrong one?
Maybe it was supposed to pass through and someone didn't load it onto the plane that was actually coming this way.
Yep.
So it remained.
That kind of
Have you ever had that experience?
Remember,
with a coffin?
this
No.
person died in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah. Then it
So
goes
it was
to
a
Frankfurt,
flight that was en route.
to Nairobi via Frankfurt, and then they leave it in Frankfurt.
You know, Saudi Arabia is just here.
Here.
Can you imagine that family now going back? So
No, I can't imagine.
the hearse driver says, me, I've brought my vehicle.
I can't imagine.
You need to
actually.
pay me.
Losing a suitcase and waiting for it to arrive in Nairobi how many days later is terror enough.
Yeah.
Now you can imagine a coffin, your loved one you're supposed to bury, and you don't know when it's going to arrive, and they start giving you story.
Yeah.
Oh, you know. Come and then pick it at JKIA in Nairobi.
Very sad. Before we go to the top of the hour, I have another one. A human rights activist has written to the Commission on Administrative Justice, that's the Ombudsman's office, demanding the arrest of a man accused of breaking his wife's arm twice in 3 months. The 25-year-old woman accuses her husband of breaking her left arm on the 10th of December last year following a domestic row. And 5 weeks ago, March 25th, when the arm had healed and the cast removed, her husband allegedly broke the same arm. Now, Mr. Salesio Thuranira has written to the Ombudsman seeking action against Kirene police station boss for allegedly delaying the arrest of the perpetrator. He says well-wishers had helped to move Miss Kendi and were providing for her upkeep because she is unemployed and cannot fend for herself because of the broken arm. So here, this person is basically asking the Ombudsman, who deals with matters of if you have complained against a public officer, to deal with the police boss at that police station because he's not arresting the person.
Break one arm, she heals, then you break the other one. Okay. It's okay.
Yeah. You can imagine that. Keep it right here. Let's have a conversation about teen pregnancies in the country, the shadow pandemic, and joining us shortly will be Gender and Inclusivity Advisor at Plan International, Miss Anastasia Olembo. Good morning. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. We are here until 10 o'clock. Okay? It's the last day of the month, but we're here. Good morning. It's 7 a.m.
SpiceFM, Nakuru. Traffic.
Okay, so Jogo Road to town blocked by a trailer at the Makadara DC. Use alternative routes to town, guys, because that trailer looks like it's going to be there for some time. It's not moving anytime soon. Jogo Road heading to town is a mess. Avoid this. So there are many things that are causing this. The trailer that is blocked, or rather the trailer that's stuck in the middle of the road, blocking traffic. Jogo Road is a no-go zone in and outbound today. We're going to keep an eye on things and see how it opens up, but for now, expect some heavy traffic if you're already there or heading in that direction. All right, coming off of Thika Road is moving, not too badly, into the city centre. It slows down right around the Kiambu Road junction. and then joining with Muthaiga Square, going towards the Pangani underpass. But you should be fine after that. All right, coming out of Westlands, visibility seems to be a bit low today. There was yet another accident that happened there, and folks were stealing from the vehicle, so that caused the police to come in and try and, scare everybody away. Let's have a look at how things open up in about half an hour, shall we? But for now, it looks like that Friday morning where there's a little bit of drama already. Hope it doesn't get much more. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. That's how you can get in touch. Text on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your...
After 7. Very good morning to you. Happy Friday, wherever you're tuned in this morning. Whether you're in the country, around the world, wherever you are, we're glad that you're tuned in. Also, those joining us on KTN Home for the next 2 hours, karibuni sana, and we're glad that you're able to join us. We begin the hour, every hour, with the day's proverb by C.T. Muga.
A man who chases 2 rabbits catches neither.
A man who chases 2 rabbits catches neither. Right. Mtaka yote hukosa yote. Okay. We hear you. We hear you. Yesterday we had a conversation about the shadow pandemic. And we were talking about the teenage pregnancies that we've seen in the country. Not just this year and last year during the COVID pandemic, but even before that. And every year there's a new cycle of number of children who are actually getting pregnant within their teenage years. Number of children who should be sitting an exam and are not able to sit an exam. Number of candidates who start sitting an exam and then they go into labor and they deliver and they continue sitting exams. And we ask ourselves, so what is this? How can we get to a point where we address this? There are very many ways of looking at it. There is the issues of defilement. There's the issues of some cultural practices. There's the issue of just young boys and girls being young boys and girls. And there's a whole issue of the society. Is it a breakdown in society? Is it a breakdown in our values? What exactly is the issue? We started and we'd like to continue with this morning. And I guess that we wanted to have yesterday, but due to technical issues, we were not able to have her on. We have her on now this morning. Anastasia Olembo is a gender and inclusivity advisor at Plan International. Good morning, Anastasia.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for joining us. Welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you very much.
Now, you are a gender and inclusivity advisor at Plan International. You're also somebody who's been a good advocate for all the rights, especially the gender issues and issues of children and the girl child. You are among those who are calling this the shadow pandemic. Why give it this name, the shadow pandemic?
Okay, thank you so much, and good morning once again. A very good question. And the reason why I am calling it a shadow pandemic is because the teenage pregnancy, we didn't know so much about it. Although we knew that it was happening, but with COVID, it has exposed us to understand that there is much more than just COVID. The lockdown and people being at home, schools being closed and children being at home with their parents, attended or not attended, and the increase in the number. Even though when you look at the statistics from 2019 and 2020, the difference is very, very small. the statistics that were released by the government by the end of 2020 December, they showed us that teenage pregnancy numbers were almost the same. But we didn't know so much about this. It is an outcry. Suddenly, because now people are at home and we are able to see these girls at home in reality, then we are able to see. But it is a shadow, and it is something that we definitely need to bring it into the limelight so that we stop calling it a shadow pandemic. It is pandemic because it is affecting these girls who are 10 to 19, who are actually immature. Their body has not developed fully to be able to contain a pregnancy to term. Mortality rate of in Kenya, the health professionals have told us that it has increased. And when they look at the numbers, those who are increasing the statistics are actually between 10 and 15, which is a reason why we want to say, yes, it is a shadow, but we want to demystify that shadowness.
Anna, what are the reasons, from what you've seen, the reasons as to why young girls within this age bracket are getting pregnant? That's part A of the question. And then are we really only seeing this as a result of COVID? Because one could argue and say, well, it's because they've been stuck at home. If this COVID ends, then we would see a decline of this problem. But it would seem as if it's deeper than that. So is it only a COVID issue? And then on the other side, what are the causes of the pregnancy that we are seeing?
Let me start by saying this. Teenage pregnancy has always been there. And because of social and cultural behavior and social norms that talk about silence, we have what we call culture of silence in Kenya, where issues of sexuality are not spoken out. People don't speak at home about issues of sexuality, boys and girls engaging in sex or understanding their body, how the body functions. When you are at this age, what should you be looking at? When you grow to this level, what is going to happen? So even within the gender circles, when we are training people on to understanding gender, we also try to train them to understand the difference between gender and sex, so that they know sex is an identity, and this identity is natural. There are things that begin to grow because of certain aspects of your body functionality. When children get to age between 10 and 14, that is where we begin to see girls start their menstrual period. And because in our culture, I'm saying there is a culture of silence, many children have not been taught what happens. What does menarche mean? The beginning of menstrual period. How are you supposed to be behaving? If they are taught that, they will know that when they engage in sex, they are likely to get pregnant. When a boy has started deepening his voice at age 13 because of hormonal changes, he's a man now. And if this conversation is taking place at home, then this boy will know when he sleeps with a girl who is 10, 11, 12 and has started her menstruation, she's likely to get pregnant. So coming back to your question to say, we have a culture of silence. So one of the causes, the root causes, is actually our socialization, where we sort of don't cherish the growth and development and the milestones that come with that. Number two, because there is breakdown of communication at home. My mother never told me when I'm going to get my period. So for sure, I was shocked when I got, and I was in school. So if a girl is told, when you get pains, when you get to this age, this is likely to happen, she'll start preparing. And what kind of preparation they should do. In the early ages, when a girl gets to 10 years, aunties used to be put in place to begin to speak with this girl, to tell her things that maybe the mother finds it very difficult to communicate with her. But now, we are living in this society where we are in cities, where mothers are going to work, fathers are going to work, and there is sort of like no leadership. When the parents come back home, it is already very late. They are tired. They are not able to have time with their children. So that is also an opportunity that is lost. In school, we are expecting the teachers to be teaching our children some of these practices, some of the things that are happening in their bodies. The schools have some systems, but when the schools are closed, then the parents need to continue. But then there is that disconnect. And again, the teachers are not health people. So even the knowledge that they have been given is just enough for enlightening, creating awareness. So there is also lack of that training of teachers and the parents knowing how also to communicate, to have a good communication with their children, and our societal mindset, the norms that are the cultural and social norms that also make people not discuss these issues openly.
Anastasia, let me ask you this question. In your opinion, do you really think that it is urbanization that is causing this discordance between people and their traditions? Or is it that people are moving more towards what they call some form of international culture, where they subscribe to what everybody else whom they see around them is subscribing to? What do you think it is? I'm just asking your opinion on this.
Yeah, this is my opinion. I think as we grow up, we still carry with us our culture.
Mm-hmm.
As we move to the cities, we still reflect on how we were socialized and what does my culture say. So I find myself every day trying to appease how I was brought up and the things that I was told to do and not to do. Even as a medical doctor, you find, yes, you've been trained as a doctor, but in terms of breaking that tradition, there are some aspects, some people have to choose to do that. So one, yes, socialization and urbanization has actually brought some things that were not there. And if you compare the teenage pregnancy, for example, at the urban area vis-a-vis the rural area, you may find the situation is different. I didn't do that comparison, but you may find the situation is different. Why? Because in the urban, there is this kind of freedom. There is internet. Our children now, they are at home and they're using the phones. They're accessing their education online. And so at a click of a finger, they're able to get information that is from US, from UK, from another place. If you don't give them the information that they want, the right information that, according to your belief, you want them to have. Mm-hmm. There are values that are instilled in us as we are growing up. And I'm Christian, and I believe what the Bible says, that train your child in the ways of the Lord, so that when they grow up, they will not depart from it. And it's not different from science. If you train your children the right way, how they are supposed to behave, what is right and what is wrong, and what they should be engaging in positively and what they shouldn't be engaging in, when they grow up, they remember that.
So who's to do this training, Anastasia? Who is to do this training? Because it's clear, look, there's some parents, even my age right now, who will not, it doesn't matter what you do, they will not have this conversation with their children. Either they are too embarrassed, they're too traumatized by what has happened to them in their lives. They're not going to have this conversation with their offspring. So whose responsibility is it? And is it the responsibility of just one person? Or are we looking at collective responsibility when it comes? Because the numbers that we are looking at, it's not child's play. I mean, looking at other statistics, 6 out of 10 young girls in Kenya will be single parents, will be pregnant by the time they're 19 and have children. One of the highest numbers on the continent. So it didn't start with COVID. Sure, COVID exacerbated the situation. But as far as I'm concerned, it's a conversation that needed to start happening yesterday. But the question is, who needs to do this training? Because, like I said, there's some parents who are traumatized from their own experiences and not going to talk to their children. We've seen what happens at the school level where teachers are just going to give top layer information. And those that actually give information that will edify and help young people are few and far between. So what do we do?
It's not a lost game. When we call it pandemic, in a pandemic, it means that huge resources have to be pulled together. The work that Plan International does is to target the adolescents and the young women and men to be able to build their skills, to give them knowledge and build that confidence so that they understand, they have information, they can question issues, they can contribute, and they can also challenge. Number two, we don't only focus on the children. We also focus on the greater group. We work with parents. We work with the communities in the areas, in the 9 counties where we are working. We reach out to families, and we train families on positive parenting. We train children on behavior change. We look at issues of children being the change themselves. But that is not enough. We also work with partners, and we look at strategic partners because each partner has a role. And so if we look at, I've said plan is in 9 counties, and within the 9 counties, we are not in every sub-county. So who are other people who are working, who are other organizations, other agencies and government institutions who are working in those areas? We map them out and we work together. So this force is really required. And it is required so that we can have a standardized way of communicating. It is it's required so that each person sees their role very clearly and they are able to deal to come in and fill the gap. However, again, remember we are not the government, so we have the element of influencing the government, the duty bearer, to be able to develop policies and strategies that are implemented, but not just to develop them and not to be implemented. Make people aware of what is there. What does the government say about teenage pregnancy? And what are they doing? We work with them because they have the policy, they are the duty bearers, and they have the machinery and the other resources that we can pull together, and we contribute each one so that by the end of it, this vice is gotten away with. We have a campaign that is running, which we call a joint campaign to end teenage pregnancy and gender-based violence in Kenya. Mm-hmm. This campaign is actually in partnership with the UNESCO. It is in partnership with the NCPD, which is a government body. It is in partnership with the UN Women and then Plan and a media house. So we've been able to develop content, and we have been able to use a program like Mother-in-Law to sensitize people, the mothers, the fathers who are at home, the children, boys and girls, on the issues of teenage pregnancy, the causes, the roles and responsibilities that each one of them need to do. So when we do that, we are hoping that we are able to sensitize people, and they are able to change their behavior. But much more is needed. We need more resources. We need more partners. We need the government to be influenced, and that's why again we are also working with the youth, because who is pregnant? The person who is pregnant is this girl who went to maternity to deliver, and she was brought her papers to do the exam there. It is this girl who delivered, and immediately she delivered, the parents threw her out. It is this girl who is going back to school when she is still lactating, and she has all these complications of not breastfeeding because we are supposed to advocate for exclusive breastfeeding for 6 months. Mm-hmm. So in response to that question, I think I've responded well in that. It is a collective effort by everybody, including the media houses. And this is one of the things we are doing this morning, which is commendable.
What I hear you saying, Anastasia, is you want to bring about what you call behavior change intervention. Now, let me ask this question. You worked with UNESCO, UN Women, and you say you've come up with some excellent documentation. Have you considered the following? Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development. Because if this thing is this serious, you see, we are talking about the consequences of ignorance, the consequences of activities that these young people may not be fully aware of. Have you talked about ensuring that this is something that is mandatory? It is actually taught to children at a certain age, at a level where they can understand it? Primary school, secondary school, and even made to be a mandatory unit at the university, because you're assuming that just because someone is 18 years old, they understand everything. They don't.
No, they don't.
They do not. So, if indeed you want to change behavior, then you ought to start inculcating them with this information at a time when they can absorb it, it'll be new, and it's something that they're used to. But if we leave them as a tabula rasa all these years and then you spring it upon them when they're 17, 18, 19, that information is going to be battling with every other information that they already have in their heads and which they consider to be far more important to them than what you are telling them. So.
Yes. The other thing that actually we are doing, it is still on the discussion table, is we felt that this campaign alone was not enough, but although we reached very many and we are still continuing, we need then to target the teachers, like you've rightly said. The teachers need to have information. They need to have the right information. And we cannot work with the teachers. We cannot go direct to train the teachers without working with the right institutions, the Teacher Service Commission, the Minister of Education, and the curriculum development. So there is already work that is in progress with other partners that we are coming together. And this, of course, once it materializes, it is something that is going to be very, very beautiful, because we believe that we have seen that the teachers have a lot of influence on the lives of the children. But also, we have people we call gatekeepers. These gatekeepers of cultural practices. We have traditional leaders. We have religious leaders. These are people that we must always work with. Because like I talked before, I talked about the social norms and practices. And these social norms and practices, as long as we don't challenge them and we don't go deeper to establish where the root is, so that root is actually removed, we will work 100 years. We will go and other people will come and still be speaking the same thing. But in the work that we do as planned, we always ensure that we are challenging those social norms that are perpetuating discrimination, injustices, and gender inequalities. And these are the things, if the girls are in school and they get access to education equitably, and they get all the resources that are required in an equitable manner, and they are supported fully in terms of transition to high school and to university, for sure that is going to be achieved, and we will all be smiling. So I hear you, and I know there is something that we are doing, but again, it is not something that we can do alone. We need many more people to do. Right. We need to increase our advocacy and influencing to stakeholders, duty bearers, and other stakeholders. We need to have the parents trained.
Yep.
The parents need to be available to be trained. But we also need to work with men and the boys, because it is the men and the boys who make the girls pregnant. We need to have space to work with them, to educate them, to have them as partners, to have them as change agents, and also for them to understand when the girls are pregnant, it is also an issue that affects them.
It affects them as well, indeed. So everybody needs to be brought on board in this particular conversation. Thank you very much, Anastasia, for speaking to us. Anastasia Olembo is the Gender and Inclusivity Advisor at Plan International, talking to us about what she's calling the shadow pandemic, teenage pregnancies in the country on the rise, on the up and up, despite all the interventions that have been rolled out so far. Asante sana, Anastasia, and have a lovely day.
Thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you.
Good day.
26 minutes after 7, time for us to take a break. Let's take a look at the weather and traffic. And as we do that, GenerationNextChallenge.com. That's what we'd like you to remember. GenerationNextChallenge.com, the website that gives you an access to this particular platform, the Kenya National Challenge, where children between the ages of kindergarten going age to 11th grade are able to acquire a deeper understanding of math, computer science, robotics, basically being able to connect math to real life. GenerationNextChallenge.com. Log on today, register your child, and let them participate in these challenges. It's a good and fun way to learn. Good morning.
24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is SpiceFM.
It's time to answer questions that are worthwhile. The Big Quiz Show is here. Register to play from the comfort of your home by SMSing the word JOIN to 23774. Then watch the live show on KTN every Sunday from 8 p.m. where you could have a chance to win a melee. The fastest and most accurate answers are guaranteed to win. The Big Quiz Show, Sundays at 8 p.m. only on KTN. You better be ready. Every Friday at 7:30 p.m. only on KTN Home. It's the Shining Stars TV show moment. Get ready to be inspired.
Cruise the city in a bulletproof Cadillac.
Get ready to be part of an exciting journey of discovery and learning with talented children.
Held me down, but I got up. Get ready, 'cause I had enough.
Get ready to be entertained by super amazing young talent. Because hii ni yetu, from our own talented stars, hosted by #1 TV host, Sleepy David. Shining Stars TV show, every Friday, 7:30 p.m. only on KTN Home. Be part of the journey.
Spice FM.
Hey, it's getting hot in here. The media has greatly contributed to the moral rot that we experience in this country.
I remember a senior politician telling me, point blank, nobody steals in the field, it's stolen in the granary. So my friend, if you're going to win an election, jipange kwa granary.
I think we are suffering from Stockholm syndrome. Our violate.
The weather with Spice FM.
All right, it's mostly cloudy in Nairobi this morning at 17 degrees. It'll go to highs of 26 today, back down to lows of 17. Mostly sunny conditions in Nyeri at 15, highs of 24. 26 will be the high in Nakuru, where it's mostly sunny at 16. 26 the high and lows of 13 in Eldoret. 29 highs in Kisumu. It's currently raining at 21. Mostly sunny conditions in Kakamega at 20, highs of 29 and lows of 18 today. Highs of 30 will be recorded in Mombasa, where it's continuing to rain at 26, and 26 in Malindi as well, highs of 30, and 27 will be the high in Kampala today. It's raining at 19. Partly sunny conditions in Dar es Salaam at 24, highs of 30, coming back down to lows of 25. 11 and raining in Johannesburg, going to highs of 16 and lows of 9. 32 will be the high in Lagos, where it's clear at 26. Rain showers in Kinshasa, highs of 31 and lows of 24.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM.
All right, guys, that closure between Nyayo Stadium roundabout and Bunyala Road roundabout continues for 21 days. Remember, you can't use that for now. Stick to Langata Road and go towards Aerodrome or go towards Bagavi Way. That's what you want to use, at least for now. Okay, so Jogo Road, it was a mess this morning. It still is, unfortunately. All the way from Makadara out is crazy. Very, very slow. So we want to keep an eye on that. Ngong Road today also getting towards the roundabout at the City Stadium is taking some time. So you want to be patient with this one. All right, let's look at Likoni Lunga Lunga. Also slow, just a little bit. And it's joining with Jogo Road out then towards Landis. An absolute mess this morning. So it's that Friday for Jogo Road. It's not flowing smoothly. Let's keep an eye on things and see how they open up in a short while. Reach us on Twitter, SpiceFMKE, or text 40127.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
28 minutes to 8 o'clock. Kenya's biggest conversation continues. We're right here until 10 a.m. in the Situation Room each and every weekday morning is Ndu Oko, C.T. Muga, and Eric Latif. Let's switch the conversation now from one pandemic to the other pandemic. The global pandemic, that's COVID-19. And there are people who are saying the real pandemic is actually our health sector. Kenya's ailing healthcare system. Right? We have talked about this. So what exactly is happening in our health sector? The COVID-19 pandemic has exposed a lot, like you said. A lot of things have happened since that time when COVID was declared in the country on the 13th of March. Friday, 13th of March, 2020.
Yeah, but it's just the thing is, I think, unfortunately, COVID has been blamed for the occurrence of these things.
Yep.
I think the only blame that should be given to COVID is the exposure of a lot of things that had been happening anyway. Either they had been covered up by the powers that be, or those who were then operationalizing them kept them quite quiet. But then everything came to a standstill, and it's kind of like when a child is coughing during the day, you don't really feel that they're suffering any malaise. But then when the sun goes down, things get worse. So in this case, you have a depressed situation. There's really no activity. And that's when you get to see the rot that really lies therein. Now, Afia House, been called Mafia House for the longest time, right? But then as a result of some of the things then that were not dancing out in front of us, we got to see that there was quite a lot that was going wrong, that had been going wrong, and did not start with COVID. And I'm not going to be one of those who say, well, COVID has caused this and that's why it happened. I'm the one who says, because COVID created a depressed situation, then you were able to actually see what was really happening on the underbelly. And it needs some action, needs to sort out those wrongs.
Let's have this conversation with somebody who is part of a group that are going with the hashtag The Real Pandemic. She's Lisa Arino, advocate of the High Court and program associate for health governance at the Kenya Legal and Ethical Issues Network, KELIN. Lisa, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Situation Room. We're glad to have you.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
So you'll shortly tell us about hashtag The Real Pandemic. First, tell us about KELIN. What is this organization and what do you do?
Okay, KELIN is an independent health rights NGO. So basically we advocate for full implementation of the right to health. Do this in a number of ways, so advocating for the integration of, constitutional principles, human rights principles within laws and policies that relate to health. We also facilitate access to justice for people who have faced health-related human rights violations, participate in strategic litigation for issues, that could affect or are currently affecting the right to health. So we do this in multiple areas: sexual and reproductive health and rights, HIV, TB, and health and governance, which I am affiliated with, or I guess connected to.
Right.
Yeah.
And now, the real pandemic. Why hashtag the real pandemic?
So hashtag the real pandemic is sort of a recognition of the fact that the issues that are plaguing the health sector aren't, the COVID pandemic didn't come and destroy Kenya's health system. There were already so many pre-existing issues. The constant lack of transparency and accountability, incredible number of corruption cases, as I've just had you refer to, the way we've referred to Afia House as Mafia House for the longest time. So that strain, that trend of, corruption, lack of accountability for corrupt institutions or individuals implicated within corruption scandals, the lack of follow-up, transparency, even financing. Kenya has made regional commitments for how much of its national budget it ought to allocate to financing, and yet we have never reached even half of what Kenya has committed to. And so that strain or that trend of things, that trend of violations isn't new. It's merely exacerbated by the pandemic, because times of crisis, we all know, during times of crisis, there's a lot more opportunity, there's a lot more gaps that can be exploited, to continue to violate health-related human rights, continue to refuse to provide necessary information, just that continuous thread. Haikuanza na COVID, that's our point. That is the point of the real pandemic. And so the real pandemic is actually the constant human rights violations and lack of transparency and accountability on the part of the government.
You put it well, you phrased it well, and you've given it a nice tag, the real pandemic. Okay, now we have the real pandemic. Then what?
Yeah, so now that is, I guess, the question that we all ask ourselves in any space or any human rights space. We identify an issue and then what? And so coming from maybe the formal NGO perspective, we do tend to follow now what the law says. So when there's an issue, if you want more information on it, you'll request that information. Then, send that to the relevant duty bearer, the relevant government body, hope for a response, there's non-response, send a reminder, again, non-response, then eventually lead to probably a case in the court.
You're an advocate you're an advocate of the High Court of Kenya, correct?
Technically, I'm a lawyer. I have yet to be admitted to the bar.
Okay, so technically you're a lawyer. That's good enough. Advocate of, those are details. But let me ask the question. Do you feel that as an advocate, when you talk about trying to fight this huge demon of corruption, as we keep calling it, do you think, or do you know, or do you believe that our courts are a reasonable or a good ally in this fight against corruption?
So I think the courts can be a good ally, but again, the courts do not work in isolation. And so a trend we are noticing, yet another trend to do with the real pandemic, is even when the courts have given very positive judgments, and there have been a number within the right to, around the right to health. So we've had court cases around, detention or cheating, defaulting on TB drugs as a crime, had cases around sexual and reproductive health information. So the courts do make positive judgments around the right to health, even around probably information and transparency. The problem is whether the executive and the other arms of government then implement. And so the court can only be a watchdog in a system that's respecting the rule of law. So we've had many, many instances of cases. One, I think a very good example is around TB. So the pre-2016, people with TB, if they stopped uptake of their drugs, could actually be arrested and charged with a crime. And so once you're arrested, charged, and jailed, you go into, we know we have a general idea of the state of prisons. You're not put in isolation. You're not provided with adequate nutrition that you require, for those TB drugs to actually work. You may not even get that consistent, prescription of drugs. And so the court actually decided and directed that crime, first of summing that as a crime, is unconstitutional, and directed the Ministry of Health to set up an isolation policy, a rights-based isolation policy, and, implement it. And yet in 2020, when the pandemic or when the first COVID case was confirmed in Kenya, you felt like government was scrambling, like, kuna kituka isolation, how do we do it? They're scrambling to come up with policies when there were previous directives by the court that could have built a base so that there's a more coherent response.
I mean, it's with all these things that are going on, because they throw a stone and it's going to land on something that's going wrong, right? In the health sector. And then it would appear that very little is being done about it. And I'm racking my brain trying to think about what has been a problem that has been presented and that has been dealt with and that has been sorted out within the health sector. Can you think of one that is now running well and we can say, okay, here is an example of how something has gone wrong. You look at the systematic failure, then you fix it and you say, this is how now others can emulate and say, all right, let's do this, so that it can then contribute to a kind of point system in the health sector now that we say is functioning properly. Whether it's corruption, whether it's, do we have any examples of such from the work that you've done for us to be able to look at and see?
Okay, so I'd say a great example is communities of people living with HIV. So Kellen, even at its start, dealt mostly with the rights of people living with HIV, and then now expanded into other health-related human rights. And so in the HIV space, pre-2010 or around the 2000s, there was a lot of stigma against people living with HIV, which has not completely ended, but it was much worse at the time. So you found the human rights of people living with HIV were really sidelined. Their rights to privacy of health information not respected. So people reveal their positive status, they lose jobs, they lose housing. In the cases of even women in Nyanza, there have been cases of constant disinheritance where their spouse has died of HIV. So they'd be told, the family would sort of imply that alileta HIV, this woman that brought HIV to our son. And so that combined effort of civil society organizations, but also led by communities of people living with HIV, actually did lead to some gains. And so we saw things like the institution of the HIV and AIDS Tribunal that specifically deals with violations of HIV-related rights. So having expanded access, or rather at the time, expanding access to antiretroviral therapy. So there are instances where I think that's the core of it, where stakeholders work together and communities that are affected by the issue are centered, then there is progress. You can push towards something. And so the situation for people living with HIV in 2000 versus in 2021 is different.
As we talk about all these things and what's happening in the health sector, and you advocate for proper governance of our health sector, and this is what you push for, right? You've gone into the issues of financing, you've gone into the issue of the proper management of health systems and all, but then the other questions that keep coming out left, right, and center is on human resource for health sector. Human resource for healthcare. Doctors, we don't have enough doctors, we don't have enough nurses, yet we have very many who get trained, and not all of them are at work at all times. So the big question here is, how do we move and campaign such that those who have been trained in the country are able to be absorbed by the health sector in the country? What's required according to you and the work that you do at Kellen?
Yeah, so first off, you bring up a very good point. Human resources for health are a key building block of, a strong health system, and we've definitely seen it within the Kenyan context. And so I think the thing with human resources for health is there are multiple things that are required to ensure that, there's a strong, trained base of healthcare workers. So certain issues that come up consistently with human resources for health, first is the use of community health volunteers and advocates. So these are sort of community resource persons who do things like follow-up on HIV treatment, follow-up on TB treatment within communities, and they do a lot of the groundwork to ensure that people with chronic illnesses and chronic conditions are accessing the treatment they need. But having them sort of recognized as a formal part of the health sector has been an issue. And so there's currently a community health bill in place, but we see how that goes. But even beyond that, I think we're all aware of the extremely prolonged strike by nurses and clinical officers, and this is a continuing thing. And so for human resources for health, there's that need first off to recognize the different cadres, but also ensuring each cadre is, well taken care of.
Yeah.
And so our key complaint of nurses has been that they do a lot of the actual work, like they do the real work of interacting with patients, but this is rarely ever reflected in remuneration, in insurance, in that sort of thing. There are even studies that have been done to show that nurses and clinical officers are actually sidelined when it comes to involvement of healthcare workers in healthcare policy making.
Siti, as we're talking about this, the fact that there is an organization that is actually raising such an issue, the fact that we have such a hashtag, the fact that we are sensitizing and mainstreaming issues of we need to focus on what needs to happen to our healthcare system. We talk about this on this show all the time. We talk about this here every so often. We're like, you know what? Something needs to happen. Now look at KEMSA. This is looking at how to actually supply medical supplies to health facilities across the country, purchase and all. When there's an issue at KEMSA, investigations are ordered. Investigations take forever to be concluded. The action that's taken by the president and the health minister is to rejig the board. How far would this go? I mean, get to a point where you ask yourself, okay, why are we behaving like there's nothing? I mean, like everything is normal. Like the best we can do here is remove the chairman of KEMSA from this board, take him to another board, remove the members of the board, bring in others, suspend the CEO, fire the CEO, bring another CEO. Who is it? Is it procurement head? Okay, just get rid of the procurement head, put another one. Does that address the issues, really?
Removing them, if it only ended there, then you would say, well, there's a semblance of something being done. But these people are then taken elsewhere.
To go and carry on their misbehavior somewhere else.
So that's what raises the real issue. There are those who have said that we've actually normalized corruption. Actually, it isn't corruption that we've normalized. Corruption is an outcome. It's a consequence. It's impunity that we've normalized. Because corruption happens because people know they can't get away with it. So this was actually what I'm saying is leading to what I want to ask. How would you like us to refer to you as Lisa?
Wakili.
Lisa is fine.
Justice. Lisa is fine.
Lisa is perfect.
Okay, Lisa, does Kellen have a program that seeks to address some of these issues or find a working relationship with the Kenya Police Force? Or service, they're called. Sorry, force, service? Do you have a program? Let me explain why I'm asking.
All right.
At the level of implementation, our police service is supposed to be independent, unless I get it wrong, is it not?
It is.
It's an independent police force.
Yes.
Sometimes we blame the police for things that are actually beyond them. Now, one of the things that Kellen does very, very well is they raise awareness. They make you aware. I know of the work that you've done with rights of widows, rights of women in land issues and so forth. I know this. But what about, because at the end of the day, our police service, the individuals who serve there are just citizens of Kenya like everybody else. Now, do you think from a position as somebody who works in Kellen that if you took the time, or if you've already taken the time, to form a relationship with the police service, so that the very same thing that you're doing to other sectors of the public, you do the police. Do you think it might bring about change in the attitudes of how the police go about their work? Because the police are often blamed as also being a bottleneck when it comes to justice being seen to be done.
Yes, very, very true. And so the thing with police is we have worked with police in the past to try to, especially with regards to violence against women, or sexual and gender-based violence, and sexual and reproductive health. And so within our sexual and reproductive health rights work, we identified an issue with police officers, the way that either women who report an SGBV case are treated within the police station, or alternatively, when perhaps it's a woman who has been accused of procuring an illegal abortion. And so we have worked with police officers in the past to sort of sensitize them on, how to handle these victims, and how to handle even if it's in the case of an alleged abortion, if someone is being arrested, still how to make sure that arrest is facilitated with dignity, that they can still access healthcare. And so the challenge with working with police is it's hard to form relationships as things are constantly changing. So we've had many situations where we've trained people or built relationships, especially with the gender desk. Then this person who you formed a relationship with and trying to forward work is then transferred. And so there are always opportunities, of course, to work with as wide a base of stakeholders. But then again, with opportunity comes the challenge of engaging them as well.
We've had very many conversations here, and somebody saying, highly doubt in systemic impunity and manipulation from who is who, depending on whose interest one is protecting. Highly doubt any changes can actually come to our health sector. Lisa, we want to thank you very much for joining us and for speaking to us today. This is a good conversation. It's a good hashtag that you've launched. It's hashtag the real pandemic. I'm sure you'd like people to participate with in this conversation. So how would they do that?
Yes, so if this is going to be a running campaign, or you can follow it on Kelly's social media pages. There are also a number of other civil society partners. KEMSA Watch that does parliamentary monitoring, Transparency International Kenya, working in transparency and accountability, Haki Jamii, and People's Vaccine, which is a people-centered campaign for free, equitable vaccine distribution in Kenya. And so we'd really encourage people, because people have had experiences with the health sector. It's not just civil society that's affected, it's actual communities, it's actual individuals. And so encouraging them to actually visit the tag on social media platforms and share their stories. Were you able to access health services during the pandemic? But even pre-pandemic, what issues were you facing in trying to access health services, in having those health services made available, in the affordability? So again, a number, or even inclusivity of vulnerable and marginalized communities. So people with disabilities, people living with HIV, people with chronic illnesses, having these, all stakeholders, having patients, having the public contribute to that tag, the real pandemic, to actually highlight what sort of violations or situations have they been within the health sector during the pandemic, but before the pandemic as well.
Very good conversation. Hashtag the real pandemic. Join that conversation. Share your experiences. Share your thoughts as well on what needs to happen to reform or improve access to healthcare for all. This is a constitutional provision. It's one of those rights, man, that everybody has a right to accessing the best health services at all times. Lisa, thank you very much for speaking to us today. Have a lovely day.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
5 minutes to 8. Time for us to take a break. Jobs.standardmedia.co.ke. Have you logged on to jobs.standardmedia.co.ke? Very many jobs have been advertised there, and you can go in and subscribe to job alerts. So whenever there is a latest relevant job, You will receive an alert on your SMS or on your email. Some of the jobs being advertised today: landscaper, a toilet facility manager, sales and marketing manager, sales representatives for heavy machinery, sports and health club manager, cleaners, security guards, manager strategy and transformation, modern trade manager, entrepreneurship facilitator, branch manager in Mombasa for an organization, a hospitality facilitator, an industrial garment manufacturing facilitator. All those and more are jobs.standardmedia.co.ke.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
Sugar and spice and everything nice, just the way you like it.
The Spice Drive.
Did you have a great day? I hope you did. I intend to make it better from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. I'm going to be taking you home nice and chill. Everyone is welcome aboard. The hashtag is Spice Drive and, of course, SpiceFM KE on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
The Spice Drive with Monique. The official soundtrack of getting you where you need to be. Spice FM.
Hey, it's getting hot in here. The media has greatly contributed to the moral rot that we experience in this country.
I remember a senior politician telling me, point blank, nobody steals in the field, it's stolen in the granary. So my friend, if you're going to win an election, jipange kwa granary.
I think we are suffering from Stockholm syndrome. Our violator and abuser is also our redeemer in our mind.
The whole political class, the whole political institution is rotten. It is based on ideals that cannot progress our country forward.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. 87.9 Spice FM, Mombasa. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
Well, Kenya's biggest conversation continues. Well, some comments are coming in. Consider Kerogoya County Government Building Referral Hospital, 1.2 billion shillings, 300 beds. To build similar 2 new hospitals in Nairobi at 2.5 billion to 10 established SACCOs can raise funds, build hospitals, and county government pays annual rent of 7.5 to 10% return. Affordable, political, acceptable. To MCA. You've done a lot of quick math. What are you saying? Did you get it?
No. I'm not, no, I didn't land on that one.
So first of all, it's Kitengela County. So government building a referral hospital for 1.2 billion shillings and 300 bed facility. Build similar 2 new hospitals in Nairobi at 2.5 billion shillings.
Which is the same price. One is 1.2.
It says
2
we can basically get financing through SACCOs. Yeah. So a SACCO can actually put up a facility, get into partnership with healthcare providers. They run the facility, make money. Instead of government sinking the cash in capex of building the facility, you basically lease
from a private entity. Okay. Well.
Okay.
Options.
One way of looking at it. All right. Okay, keep it right here. These conversations continue into the next hour. We're looking at hashtag the real pandemic, actually. What is it that needs to happen in our healthcare system so that then we can have this constitutional right being realized, so we can all access healthcare. As we are talking about what's happening in India, remember there are hundreds, if not thousands, of Kenyans in India, and they're there not for business, but because of seeking health services. Now, they will be looking for a way out, not because they are healing or they are better, but because of the ongoing crisis in that country. We need our own health facilities. Good morning, it's 8 a.m.
Spice up your life. 102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
Okay, yeah, so there is still some traffic on the roads this morning. Actually, now is when we're gearing up into it. Coming off Mombasa Road into the CBD, it's slow, guys. Some in and outbound traffic, but nothing too painful. At least, well, not at the moment. Thika Road also into the city. It looks pretty good, guys. Where we do have a hold up is Jogo Road today, and it looks like it's going to spill over towards Outer Ring and then on this other side towards Landis Road. Very, very slow. Makadara, there was an accident that took place there. A trailer stalled in the middle of the road, and so now as everybody gets out onto the road, it's causing some major traffic, and we're going to deal with the results of this for some time. Okay, so one to watch out for. Headed in the direction of Jogo Road, you're going to have to be patient because you won't be able to get through as fast as you may have planned. Okay, Langata Road coming to the city looks all right, as does Ngong Road. Coming out of Westlands as well looks pretty good. Thika Road behaving very well the last few weeks. Hopefully it continues this way. Let's take a look at how it looks in about half an hour or so. Talk to us on SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text on 40127. It is Friday. We want to keep things moving, don't we? Yes.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Kenya's biggest conversation. It continues. We're here until 10 a.m. CT, today's proverb.
A man who chases two rabbits catches neither.
A man who chases two rabbits catches neither.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think this is so?
Divided attention, divided focus, which sometimes equals no focus. Yes. And then there's the issue of the rabbit. Who really isn't looking forward to being caught?
And they're clever enough not to follow each other.
Yes, and who? No, they're
each
clever.
rabbit will run in its own
a different direction.
Yeah.
They are smart that way. So now, if you want to have that divided thought, then try running in both directions. See how far you get with that one. The rabbits have the right idea on this one.
Okay. So where is this proverb from?
This proverb is from Africa.
Oh, for those Africans.
It's one of those African proverbs.
Those Africans.
Those Africans.
The truth is, man, there's a plethora of proverbs that are similar to this one.
Yes.
Yes. They are so.
In almost every community, there'll be something to tell you, focus. Yeah.
Divided attention doesn't get you anywhere.
Doesn't get you the result that you are looking for. So, as we continue talking about our health and the health crisis, the global pandemic that's COVID-19, the situation as we see it unfolding in India, and India is connected to Kenya in very many ways, right? One of the things that people are also raising is the fact that there are many Kenyans who are in India.
Yes, they are.
They've gone there seeking medical treatment. And now, with everything else that's unfolding there, of course, the healthcare workers in India are not being able to give them the adequate attention that they require.
My friend, the situation in India is terrible.
It's crazy. And so people who are there seeking healthcare services or medical attention are thinking, okay, I can also see I'm right here and COVID with this strain is happening. I need to go home. Even if I just find myself back home, I'll see how else I can get sorted. So there are very many Kenyans who are seeking to come back home. Kenya Airways is lining up flights to say, okay, yes, we have, the government has said after a certain time, flights from India will not be allowed into the country. But so Kenya Airways is working with the government on how to bring the people back home. It still doesn't address the issue of the person who's there, who went there to seek health services. They went there because they felt that that's a better place for them.
Mhm.
Or in very many cases, you'll find a doctor here is one who referred them to India. And then they come back here. When we are talking about the real pandemic, then it brings home that whole conversation. We go seeking health services outside the country.
We do.
The outside the country has problems. Now we have to come back inside the country. Are we going to be able to deal to offer the services that are required by those people who are in India?
The simple but unfortunate answer is no, without even going very deep into it. And so that's why you would have asked yourself at that point that you look back with a little bit of regret, or at least you should, especially for those who then are tasked with the responsibility of making sure that these things happen. That had we organized, had we instituted the right medical facilities that we needed in this country to get things done, then perhaps we would not find ourselves in that position. But unfortunately, for a lot of situations, the point of realization is laced with regret. It is at the point of regret that you then realize what you should have done. And it doesn't always have to end that way. I think what happens is that along the way, we get so many pointers as to things that you could do. From the very fact that your citizenry, when things are actually going bad, you're not able to provide solutions for them. They have to go outside the country to get affordable and sufficient and efficient healthcare. They have to go outside of the country to get hip replacements, valve replacements, cancer care, because what's available in the country is not up to scratch, or it is up to scratch but too expensive and people cannot afford it.
Yeah.
So now something happens where the place that you've gone to is literally on its knees medically, and people have to come home, but they can't get the health that they need. I don't know that there's a worse situation than that.
Do you know what is actually strange? Is that there are many people on this continent who come to this very country for specialized healthcare.
They
Same
come to Kenya.
Yes. And
this Kenya of ours.
This very, very, very Kenya. And in fact, the discussion is, should they go to South Africa or Kenya? And many opt for Kenya. And they do get the services they're looking for, and they go back home.
My mother's an example. My mother came here for eye care at the Lions Hospital here. And it's not that somebody said, oh, come and try here. It's that information had already reached other quarters, that there's an option for you to go to in Kenya. You don't have to go to Europe, or you don't have to go to the US or India. You can actually come to Kenya. And she came here and she was actually sorted out so properly at a price that she could afford. Now, can you imagine if such things like that were then replicated in other health areas? It is so. What bothers and what you should actually be looking at is that you have examples of these things that can be done. They can be done, but you just choose not to do them. Leave it to the whims of things like impunity and corruption. Leave it to the whims of, okay, I'll just do it whenever I want to. Or yes, we've already been labeled as corrupt, so let's just continue in that way. People who then have not been able to get the job done, instead of sorting out the rot, we just take the head and put it on another entity. I mean, how then do you give your people any kind of confidence for one of those constitutionally established rights that people should have proper access to healthcare? It's not happening. If you want, have NHIF running properly. If you want universal healthcare, put it there. But the systems through which these things should work are at a rot stage. Forget it.
You know, even as you're mentioning, as you're reeling off these the names of these government institutions, you see, we get it right in that we understand what needs doing, and we even set a framework for it. A beautiful one. Full stop.
The story is finished.
Full stop. If we really try, we start doing something with something that's existing. Why is it, for instance, that if you look at institutions that we have in this country, for instance, let's take education, let's take health. How did we get to the point where the private sector within the country has such a big say in these two very key institutions in the country? How? Same thing. The government has done its bit and they figure, well, you know something, this should be enough. And yet, we have plans for something far more advanced, Meaning we have people who can envision and who can plan for the very things we're talking about. And they do plan for them. We are willing to plan for them. We're even willing to budget for them. We're even willing to put money aside. And then we know what happens thereafter. If there's money involved and we need to put up structures, yes, you may even see the start of it. And by the way, it didn't start with this government. With every government we've had in this country, there seems to be an ever-increasing, even in the Kibaki government, when believe me, many things that didn't worked. We still had issues of people doing things they shouldn't do, money going where it shouldn't go. Essentially, this so-called demon of corruption.
Yep.
So, the only difference is that with this particular government, it has become a normal way of life. Do you remember this clip we saw the other day of young people sort of like coming through the chimneys and drainage pipes from a building and the numbers were many.
And they're trying to avoid arrest by police officers.
Yes.
Because they were flouting one simple rule. No drinking.
That's it.
In a public place.
There were many.
And they were somewhere in a room.
Somewhere in the city somewhere. In fact, I asked myself, goodness, how big was that room?
There were many.
They just didn't stop coming down. There were many and they kept. Now, what that told me as I looked at it, I said, we have normalized impunity. Every Kenyan plays his part in contributing to impunity. You just need to give him. The government says, you can't do this. They say, really? Talk to yourself. They then proceed to find ways of circumventing that very same thing to the government at the level that they can circumvent
even
it.
Even umesema, it's okay.
Tumesikia.
We've heard it.
Asante sana, sir. I mean, there's guys. When are we meeting?
But also, it's because of the examples sometimes being given. When you see action, we hear bureaucracy is a slow-moving wheel. The wheel of justice grinds, but it grinds slowly. All those things. But if you look at the scandals that keep coming out of the healthcare management of this pandemic called COVID-19 and what has happened in the country, and you ask yourself, are we actually gaining confidence in our government doing the right thing? Or is this just an enterprise that's allowing people to come in and benefit themselves and then go away and enjoy as we are left to our own devices? KEMSA is a scandal. COVID billionaires. Okay? At no point has the government said, no. Everything that has happened at KEMSA was above board. Investigations are still ongoing. Blah, 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 blah. Still ongoing. Okay? The president ordered investigation and said, I'd like a report within, was it 30 days initially? Yes. We didn't hear that. We have seen the suspension of senior managers. We have seen the commencement of investigations by oversight bodies, Parliament. Then now yesterday, we saw the action by the President and the CS for Health in removing everybody from the board of KEMSA and reconstituting the board. The chairman of the board of KEMSA had been appointed earlier to another board. He is now the chairman of the Communications Authority since the 18th of April. The other board members were yesterday relieved of their duties and a new board was constituted with a new chairman. And that's all you see.
It's done.
It's like, okay.
The end.
There's a problem. Okay. The stories that are appearing in the papers today are when the president had the virtual meeting with the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken on Wednesday, the Secretary of State in the U.S. raised issues about KEMSA from, of course, officials of USAID here who had raised issues about KEMSA before. Issues about KEMSA's lack of transparency, which allows corruption to thrive. And this affected the distribution of HIV drugs, which arrived at the port of Mombasa in January and they stayed there until, was it this month or late last month? And Antony Blinken said, this is an issue. My officers are telling me they don't trust KEMSA and I support them. They don't trust KEMSA. the president takes action by reconstituting the board of KEMSA. It could be said that the president was all along intending to take this action. It's not Anthony Blinken who's made him move. Okay, let's just go with that the president intended to take action in KEMSA. Everything else around KEMSA, this whole drama that we keep being treated to, Chinese link in 4 billion shillings KEMSA deal, who and the other, who are the big beneficiaries, how much money was lost, 7.8 billion shillings, amount believed to have been stolen or lost at KEMSA in a scandal involving the allocation of tenders to supply COVID-19 fighting kits. When you sit back as a country and you ask yourself, 7 billion shillings could have been misappropriated. Maybe it wasn't. But there's the possibility that 7 billion shillings could have been misappropriated. We may have received the kits, but maybe they costed half of that. They could have costed half of that. And you ask, here we are. We don't have enough oxygen in case of an emergency. We don't know what we're going to do in the event of an emergency and we required more ICU beds. Today, we don't know what would happen. The Council of Governors keeps releasing a report on the update of their preparedness to deal with COVID-19, and they talk about the number of beds that are available. People who go on the ground and they say, all right, so you're saying that in this particular county you have X number of ICU beds. So those ICU beds, are they equipped? Are they staffed? And we'll find, okay, yeah, we have the beds, but we don't have the number of nurses required to run a full shift to service this one bed. So you ask yourself,
look, we don't want to sort out this problem. We don't. There's nothing. We don't want to sort out this problem. You have people who've come and robbed an industry bone dry, something that should essentially be taking care of the people. It doesn't happen. And then you have an opportunity to investigate and find out and then prosecute these individuals who did this, whether it was individuals, groups of people, cartels, whatever you want to call them. But then you still look at it as if you're watching a picture, moving picture, it's moving, it goes out the window. Then you say, okay, we want to solve the problem. We talk about the fact that a fish robs from the head. But what you take that head, remove it, and then you go and connect it to another fish and assume that everything is going to be all right, and then bring another head and put it here. That's what you've done. You've just moved the problem. It's like musical chairs. You've just moved, then you remove one chair, and then you have more people dancing around fewer chairs, and hopefully the music will continue and we can all have a good time.
Have we
ridiculous?
Have we actually removed the head? Is the problem KEMSA or is the problem the Ministry of Health? Are we saying that all these people who are on that board and people who work within KEMSA, whether they're in charge of procurement or marketing, are we saying that these people are independent and just act on their own all the time?
That they are all corrupt?
They're not all corrupt.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. I don't think they're all corrupt. I do believe that there's some worker bees who are actually in there getting it done.
They just do their work.
They're doing their work as they ought to do.
No, I have seen KEMSA, I have witnessed KEMSA functioning efficiently. I have. In the distribution of ARVs in a timely fashion.
Yeah.
I've even witnessed situations where there has been some anomaly, a batch of drugs were misappropriated, and I have seen the Anti-Corruption Commission, police individuals attached to it, following it up. I know because I even spoke to some of them, how the case went to the point where it actually got to Integrity House.
And then?
Oh, no, they did find what they were looking for. Okay? I'm simply saying the efficiency of them following this
organization. It can happen.
Yes, I am seeing it. Look, you even knew on this date, at this time, they functioned. That is why I'm saying, when you are talking about the head, you're talking correctly. But let's not focus on KEMSA.
The head is not KEMSA.
The head is not KEMSA.
No. Neither is the head the board, neither is the head the MD. No. You cannot get a job of that nature until and unless there are people who want you to get that job. And you get that job with an understanding. That is the bottom line.
So, you know what then? It would seem as though then KEMSA is the proverbial scapegoat in this case. Because somebody is pulling the strings. The puppet master still has not been touched. knowing full well that it could be KEMSA today, it could be NHIF tomorrow, it could be somebody else, Kenya's National Hospital the day after that. But the command center, where the problem is not being touched.
No, it's not.
It's not being touched.
It's not KEMSA.
The Ministry of Health, that then is the feeder for all of these organizations, is not being touched. And everybody knows where they need to go to solve these problems. We have had CS to CS, minister, when they were called minister at that point, dealing with these same problems, supposedly, but never having been able to bring it to a head. Why is that?
So the
That you
problem
can
then
see
is not the Ministry of Health.
So who is it? Because
Because
this current
changed-
CS,
you've changed the
the
leadership
leadership
of this
many
ministry.
times. This same CS told us, and he stood on the steps of that same Mafia house and pointed behind him and told us, you know what? Inside here is what?
This is Mafia House.
You see,
He didn't name that house.
Look.
Before him, it had earned that name.
this relationship,
The one before him, before she was moved somewhere else, told us the same things.
this symbiotic relationship that exists between our politicians, government officials, and business people, you follow that trajectory and start with the business people, all right? Because the business people are the ones who have the money. And because that money is a useful tool in getting to influence people, it does not matter who is the CS, it does not matter who is the PS. And then the actual process of ensuring that these things get done, PS doesn't do those things, the minister doesn't do those things. They're the people who do those things. So if you want to have an honest discussion, KEMSA are the ones who operationalize this whole thing. So they must get their share of the cake. Okay? It's a rather rotten cake, but there it is. They're going to get their share of it. But if you want to be honest about it, no. The problem isn't at KEMSA.
Where is it?
The problem is at the ministry, because KEMSA is an arm of the ministry.
Okay. But then at this ministry, how do you address it? Because like you've said, you have changed the CS, the PS. You even have a new Director General of Health who's still acting.
That
have
is utter madness.
the leadership of the Ministry of Health has been overhauled time and time again. Problem persists.
You have a CS, sitting CS, who openly said there are cartels here. It's difficult for us, but we shall bring them down.
The CS made a statement that at best can be referred to as a political statement. He knows the CS didn't come visiting us from another country. He's a citizen of this country, okay, and he has lived the number of decades that I have lived on this particular continent and on this earth. He knows what happens there better than even any of us does. He's been in government. He's a business person. This is something he would understand full well. The truth of the matter is what you have said. You know, I'm pointing to the Ministry of Health. It is the key instrument that turns all these things. But the real problem are the people who actually turn it.
It's the worker bees.
Who makes the decisions that this happens, this goes in this direction?
Procurement officers at the Ministry of Health were moved.
Completely.
Not even Ministry of Health, government. They moved them. They
The
didn't
ones
help.
specifically, the
Ministry.
ones in the Ministry of Health,
Did it help?
they were all moved. That's what I'm asking. So where is the problem?
So is it
then?
a culture issue?
What?
Is it
No,
a culture?
no,
Is it a
no,
culture,
no,
culture
no,
matter
no.
that you say, okay, even if the individuals have moved, this is how we do. This is how things are done. At
Come
the
in and
Ministry of
find the
Health.
system.
Come in and find the system. Get into the system.
Culture
and
survive
then move
because
on.
they're entertained and they find a favorable environment in which to
who?
thrive.
Let's take a break.
By
24 minutes after 8. Time for us to take a break. We are talking about #the real pandemic. What's happening to our healthcare system? So the president yesterday and the Minister for Health, they reconstituted the board of the Kenya Medical Supplies Authority, KEMSA. Is that going to solve the problems that are bedeviling KEMSA? Is changing officers at the Ministry of Health going to be the problem, the solution to what's happening at the Ministry of Health? So what is it that needs to happen so that we can deal with the real pandemic? This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Jobs.standardmedia.co.ke is a website that we'd like you to visit. And at the same time, also log on to the Kenya National Challenge, which is generationnextchallenge.com. generationnextchallenge.com. Go and register your child during this time when they're at home. Let them learn with their peers in their age groups, and they're able to solve simple mathematical issues, computer science, robotics, understanding computational skills, and basically being able to connect math to real life. GenerationNextChallenge.com. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
As the Kenyans are roared into the home straight here. 4 Kenyan queens have lit up this balmy Bahamian night.
It's where the rivalry is unmatched, where the soul meets the track, where the great are distinguished from the good. An arena where the records are broken.
A new world record. It's not just been beaten, it's been obliterated.
A stage where the legends are born. For Team Kenya, the Olympics is more than just a sport. It is our tradition. It's an event that has put Kenya on the roadmap. The Standard Group lets you watch every minute and every action live in the 2020 Tokyo Olympics, because we live for Team Kenya. We live for the game. At Standard Group, sports lives here.
24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Four teams, 12 host cities, 6 groups, all battling for one trophy. The long-awaited Euro 2020 is here at last upon us. The fans might not be within touching distance.
The cross, Euro attacks it and scores, and France are ahead.
But the atmosphere will only get to a fever pitch. From the 11th of June to the 11th of July, catch the tackles, the goals, and all your favorite football stars as the elite European nations go head-to-head. The Standard Group brings you the UEFA Euro 2020 tournament live across our channel.
Oh, what a wonderful goal!
As the official UEFA Euro 2020 free-to-air broadcast partner in Kenya, because we live for the game. And that's why at Standard Group, sports lives here.
"24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
For many of us, home is a place where we find our inner peace. A place where we find the most comfort. A place where we recharge. A place where we create laughter and all the good memories. But most importantly, a place where we all belong. At KTN Home, we believe there is something for everyone. So catch all the comedy, telenovelas, Nollywood, music, sporting action, kids shows, documentaries, movies, dramas, and reality shows, all to make you and your family feel right at home. You can also stream live at www.standardmedia.co.ke.
Highs of 26 and lows of 17. Light rain in Nyeri at 17. It'll go to highs of 24. 26 will be the high in Nakuru. It's mostly sunny at 17. Mostly cloudy conditions in Eldoret at 16. Highs of 26. Highs of 29 in Kisumu. Partly sunny at 22. It's also partly sunny at 22 in Kakamega. Highs of 29 and lows of 18. 30 will be the high recorded in Mombasa. Rain showers at 27. It's also raining in Malindi at 27. Highs of 30 and lows of 26. 27 will be the high in Kampala today. Heavy thunderstorms right now at 21. It's partly sunny in Dar es Salaam at 25. We'll see highs of 30. Highs of 16 in Johannesburg. It's raining at 11. Mostly clear conditions in Lagos this morning at 25. Going to highs of 32 to come down to lows of 27 and 23. Rainy in Kinshasa. Highs of 31 and lows of 24.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM.
Okay. So still quite thick on Mombasa Road. Outbound though, it'll open up as you get towards South Sea and then out towards the Nyeri Stadium. Slows down a little bit, but this is expected, especially at this time of the day. Jogger Road is looking a little bit better now after that hold up that we saw earlier. Looking good on Thika Road, entering into the city, not too much of an issue. And then coming from Gong Road, Langata Road, also looking quite good, right? Just keep an eye on things. We'll still give you an update in a bit. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. That's how you can get in touch.
Spice up your life.
It's 8:30. The conversation continues. This is Kenya's biggest conversation in the Situation Room. Siti Muga, Eric Latif, and Ndu Oko. Hashtag the real pandemic. That is Kenya's health system. And we're looking at it now and wondering, so how do we address this particular, how do we fight this pandemic? We're talking about very many things, saying corruption is, how it manifests itself. But the real KEMSA, even if you change the board of KEMSA, even if you change the management of KEMSA, you've not dealt with the fish that's rotting in the head. You need to go to the health ministry. That's what you're saying,
and when
CT.
you get to the health ministry, you need to go further. You see, the people who are in the health ministry and those, remember, all our scandals have to do with something being procured. Whether it is MES, anything, but it's procurement.
Yep.
So you assume it's the people who are involved, who are in procurement. They don't buy those things for themselves. Okay? You start with something that is actually needed. In some cases, they are not. But that's what you start off with. And then there is the connection with people who actually are in the business of ensuring that those things are bought. The procurement officers don't buy. They just facilitate the process. You get in the realm of businessmen and businesswomen. This is where the problem is. And there are people, you can call them a cartel, you can call them whatever you wish to call them, but there are people who specialize in government tenders. That is their area of speciality. There are those who deal with health tenders. There are those who deal with construction. There are those who deal with roads. Think of anything, because there is no entity in this country that is as big a government, a business partner as the government. The government is the biggest business partner you can ever get in bed with. So, in the absence of the business entities and the peoples behind them, all this thing we keep talking about, because how did the KEMSA issue arise? It arose because we were buying things. Did KEMSA buy those things? No. They facilitated people who...
People in the private sector.
Precisely. And everything else that we've talked about. The only time you find gross losses of that sort where the bulk of the problem lies right at the foot of that government ministry or department is, for instance, donor money that comes in. Again, when you talk about money doesn't get lost. It actually doesn't get misappropriated. No, there is an indication that it is going in the direction it ought to, but it's diverted elsewhere. And again, the business people come in. Remember, the transfer of those procurement people in the Ministry of Health arose because the Auditor General raised an issue. There was some 5 billion. 5B. Somehow, there was a problem explaining and accounting. 5 billion. 5 billion is a lot of money.
A lot of money.
So what did they do with it? Now, there are those who blame the Ndegwa Commission and the Ndegwa Commission allowing government officials to conduct business. I actually do not have a problem with government officials conducting business. My problem is government officials conducting business with the government. If I have a kibanda, if I have a matatu, if I have a lorry, and I work in government, that is perfectly all right.
But don't start a business and your main supplier is your employer.
Yes, because then it's not just conflict of interest. It's anything negative you can think of. But that is what we have. So you have people who are in government, whether it's mid-level or high, but they have a stake in this business. You will not find their name anywhere, but they have a stake. And they guarantee that the people who do business of course, on their behalf. Because in the absence of their input or of their influence, you wouldn't get that business. So that's where the problem arises. And unfortunately, our people who are in leadership in government, whether it's in the executive, it doesn't matter where you want to call it. If they also happen to be business persons, unfortunately, you cannot drag them away from the business that also involves the government.
Okay, you have painted that dragon very well. How do we slay that dragon then?
Well, if we were to go the Kenyan way, we will have an election, then we'll elect a new president. And then the president, the problem will actually want to go away. Because you realize the problem was never really the president.
It was not the president.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. You alluded to a system. No. I actually think it's gone beyond a system. Corruption in this country is a religious experience.
It's practiced and
it's a way of life.
experienced.
People, yes, and people actually the God we're talking about here is the God of materialism that manifests itself in the form of money, in the form of other things. And the vehicles that we see that this God is worshipped by is through bribes, through underhand deals, and all these things that we keep talking about. Why am I calling it a religious experience? When something is so deeply rooted that it's woven itself into the very fabric of your society, what do you think that is? The only thing that weaves itself that way in my mind is religion. It occupies your mind. It's something you think about. It's something that guides the way you think. It's a far stronger religion than the religion that most people claim to be, whether they are Christians or whether they are Muslims or whether they are Hindus or they are whatever. That particular religion, in my mind, has taken center stage and has captured this. So this, if you're talking about a competition or a fight for the soul of Kenya, that fight currently, I am in that fight and I don't believe it has been won. No. But I also don't believe it has been lost.
I don't believe it's been lost. And I think that in order to win it, that it has to, look, there has to be willingness. There has to be the willingness. And I don't see. Because if we are saying that those who have a responsibility and to take care of this situation are in bed with the same folks that they're supposed to be prosecuting or investigating, then it's going to be very difficult to do so. Because that's essentially what we're saying. That the head that's supposed to be policing everything else is also in the same boat with the rest of these folks. So in the very beginning, there has to be a willingness to be able to sort out these issues. It is not happening because you have a mix and match. Everybody is involved who is not involved. And you don't want your cash cow to be touched, right? So you're going to sit there and allow things to continue.
And you see, the reason why it is such an effective religion is because anyone whose authority is involved. You know, we're talking about people in the executive. We're talking about the ministry. We're talking about the politicians. Unfortunately, no one is left out. And much as we can point fingers, every Kenyan participates in this worship of corruption at their own level. When you give your odd 100 bob, that's your participation. That's your tithe. When you find a way of circumventing something that ought to be for a regulation, that's your participation. Yes. That is why it's so deeply set in our system that I think many people just give up and say, what can we do? Actually, there's a lot you can do. And what you can do is usually at your own level. Now, unfortunately, it comes the cost. If you're going to put your foot down on something, you won't just put your foot down, because the people who haven't put their foot down will not thank you for showing them up.
I don't think it's too terrible a cost when you're looking then at the lives of thousands, millions of Kenyans that could potentially be made better by having a working health system, by having a health system that is going to procure equipment, for example, that could make somebody's kidney, heart, lungs better. That to have a system in place whereby you're providing drugs necessary to treat people around the country. I think that when you start to look at things in that way, and to say that essentially what you're doing by holding a system hostage by a very few people is killing millions, is killing potentially millions of people. When you look at it like that, then it's not too big of a cost to pay by saying, all right, let's have some heads rolling here. How long will you continue to have these problems? How long will you continue to look at a system and say, our health system doesn't work? Doctors are crying. Nurses are crying. Clinical officers are crying. Health workers across the board are crying. People are looking for healthcare, and they say, in our country, which can actually provide... I mean, how many stories have we seen in the papers in the last few months where people have done earth-shattering procedures, for example, in Kenyatta National Hospital, no less, nowhere else. So it's not for lack of expertise. It's not for lack of know-how or knowledge. These things exist here, but the machinery that you can use to push them around the country is rotten at best.
Remember,
the machine, it's not a well-oiled machine. It's not running. And we look at it and say, it's okay. We'll just move the board. We'll dismantle the board and those issues will be sorted as one side. Okay, we'll have an investigation. How long has the MES scandal been investigated? We're going on 2 years now. We're going on 2 years now. Just the investigation alone in Parliament.
MES scandal was investigated, report was tabled in Parliament, report died.
Yes.
That issue, that thing called Kaburi la Sahau? Go look for it there. That's where it is. Buried, gone.
And all the names that were mentioned
then
in
we
that
look
scandal,
at it and say, yeah, there was
some
a
are still in
scandal.
government. Some,
Yes.
Believe me, life is just going on.
And people are dying.
Yes.
People are dying.
Now, do you understand when I say this thing is interwoven into our very fabric, the very fabric of our lives? Because...
So you're saying that we, the citizens, are also participating in
Oh,
this?
we do participate at our own level. And if you don't participate as an individual, you're represented. If you take a step and you don't condone it yourself at your own level, in your life and in those around you, then surely, I spoke about this a while back and I said, we are not helpless. We are choosing to be helpless when we actually have the power.
What can we do?
Who says, for instance, I, for instance, should start by knowing who my MCA is. Let me just give an example of what I mean. I have no clue who my MCA is. Okay? And I can find out where I can locate him and where I can talk to him.
Do you know your ward?
Kilimani. Yes, I know my ward.
Many people don't. They don't even know the name of the ward they reside in.
I don't even know my chief.
Many urban dwellers don't know their ward, their chief, their MCA. They have a clue about their MP. They obviously know their governor. Many rural dwellers know all those people by name, by home,
by face, by home,
family, by everything, by children, from last born to by number of wives or husbands.
Even the number of the baptismal certificate.
Yes.
They know those details.
They have all those details. Okay? And what I'm sitting back here and thinking, sometimes whenever we have conversations about what's happening in our governance, we have a tendency of shifting, not just on this show, but as a country, we have a tendency of shifting the conversation to, but you see, the voter and the decision they make. The voter needs to make better decisions.
No.
The voter is the one who should have ways of engaging
not
more.
in this case, I'm
And
sorry.
I think no.
Actually, Eric, no.
The people in authority should do their work.
Do you know why I keep bringing in the issue of you, the individual? It is you, the individual, who complains. It is you, the individual, who bears the brunt of these things.
Yes.
And I am saying, I am not focusing on that top person, as I'm focusing on what I can do. So, you see, if you don't focus on what you can do, in my mind, you'll miss the plot. Because you'll always be focusing on what somebody else should be doing on your behalf or for you.
Yeah.
That's really what I'm getting at. If you actually, you see, the understanding is, can you put pressure on your MCA? Of course I can. Can I put pressure on the MP? Of course I can. But, look.
How much pressure? Seeking what result?
Every time.
When an issue, hold on, City. When an issue is as big as this one, I mean, there's national scandal. You are fighting a pandemic, okay? Organs of government have flagged, the Auditor General has flagged this and said there has been some misappropriation. There are unanswered questions here. Committees of Parliament have done some half job.
Totally half-baked.
And come up with a report that says the bottom line is, in that report, is there's something that is amiss here. What they've fallen short of is saying who's responsible and how they should be handled. But they say something is wrong in the procurement of the managed equipment service by the Health Ministry for the counties. That is already there. Committees of Parliament come up with reports that say there's an issue somewhere. So there's not about we need to investigate, we need to do. It's very clear and blatant that there's something that's going on that's wrong. I think it behoves the people who have that power and who've been given the authority by the citizens, the sovereign of the country, to
do something about it. Do something about
and go
it.
deeper
Oh,
to
it
actually
dies.
finding a solution. Not
Eric.
just saying that, let's play musical chairs with the board. No, don't play musical chairs with the board.
Eric, what we are seeing is when people are left, this thing that you're asking them to do, this is what happens.
If you leave them to do their job.
This is what happens. They figure, what do we normally do? Okay, can we give the impression that we've got rid of a few people? Why I keep going down to what you can do as an individual. When someone knows they're going to be under pressure for something, when someone knows it's going to cost them, let me not talk about the executive. Let's not go there. Let me go at the level of, say, my MCA in my rural home. Okay? If the MCA knows that the school board that I chair is asking to meet with them for an issue. All these are people who have other things that they do. All these people represent other people as well. Okay? We even have pastors who are in that committee. Those pastors represent a flock. All I'm saying is that meeting alone represents a voting bloc. That person will want to actually hear what you have to say. They may even try and find out what it is you want to discuss first, but they're not going to ignore it. It is that power that we actually have. And I said this before. We have youth groups, women group, young women's group, church group. Well, all these things exist. It's just that they are not utilized to ensure.
How in this case would those groups utilize the power that they have
to make our health system
to have
work.
this problem sorted out?
I am talking about solving the problem at a level where it concerns me directly. Directly, meaning if my MCA knows they're going to be under pressure, do you think they're going to go to that assembly and just go around doing what they think is useful to them? Unless they plan to move from that particular area and live somewhere else and never vie for that seat again. I'm simply saying the problems that we see, as we say, up there. No. It's just a manifestation of whatever else is happening. We devolved this whole issue. And I'm talking about the smallest unit of the devolved unit. I'm saying that's where you start handling the problem.
That's okay. That's true. The citizens need to be more engaged. That's okay. Citizens need to be more active. That's all right. It's going to take a long time.
It's not even active. It's deliberate.
Yes. Which one comes first?
I am saying...
Chicken, egg. Should they not be happening at the same time? That, yes, we are going to have a citizenry that are now changes and becomes more active, more engaged, more demanding of the service that they deserve. Okay? And that has been a conversation that's taken place for very many years.
But what happens?
For very many years
beyond
it
the
has taken
conversation,
place.
what happens?
Now, should those who tell us that they mean well for this country also not do what they're supposed to be doing?
You know, Eric, there is no...
I'm sitting here and, for example, I'm thinking, Uhuru Kenyatta as a person, right? Those who have interacted with Uhuru Kenyatta as a person, individually, they say, this is a very good man. This man means well. This man is a gentleman. Okay? He's the president. He deals with a system that has very many balls to juggle. By the time the president is speaking out publicly in frustration and saying, you know what, this money being stolen, you know what, we are trying to fight corruption. You know what, I have gone to parliament and I've said, I have received a report from EACC and these individuals are no longer going to serve in my government. Let them go to court. Let the justice take its course. You know what, I am so frustrated. Let's remove the DCI. Let's remove the DPP. Let's remove the head of EACC. What do you guys need? Treasury. Give them the resources that they need. You guys, can you now do your job? You know, he stands at KPA and says, there's an investigation that's going on here. Don't call me. The people who are supposed to do their job have my full blessings to do the job that they're supposed to do. The president sitting down there, at the end of the day, going home, is frustrated left, right, and center. Okay?
I think he is. And part of the reason why he is because he appoints people who he believes will do what they're supposed to do.
Yes.
And then those people turn out to be like everybody else he got rid of. You're wondering, what on earth is wrong with these people? Yes. Now you see, how do you get the question?
So now here is the thing.
Yes.
Even by the time, you can imagine, by the time Mutahi Kagwe was speaking out and saying, this is a den of thieves, more or less, Mutahi Kagwe knew that he had the backing of the president.
Of course he did.
His boss. To have the confidence to actually come out and say, I am going to slay this dragon. Look, now, here we are.
He might as well have said that in the next month I'm going to grow wings and you'll see me flying.
God, man.
Look, this is not a dragon you slay with statements, okay? Because anyone who is old enough to have and has the courage to have been in public office, has the courage to have vied for a political seat, because it takes courage to do these things, and has even served in government, there's hardly anything that person doesn't know or understand.
How do you slay dragons? Of all the stories that you read in your childhood, even those that you read later, how do you slay the dragon?
Most of the stories I read, those dragons died of old age.
Okay. There's actually a book called How to Slay the Dragon, and the thing, at the end of the day, they cut off its head. So that the thing does not move anymore.
What do they use to cut off the head?
I think it was an axe or something. The story that we
Made
read.
of what metal?
I don't know.
How do they
Specifically the metal.
ensnare the dragon?
I'll bring the book for you on Monday, and I'll read a chapter out of it.
Bring
It's
the
actually
book.
quite symbolic.
Look,
I'm telling you that this thing is standing, it's looking at you. You know the problem. You know how to get rid of it. You just don't want to. You just don't want to. And I think we can philosophize, we can say all the things that we want to say, but at the end of the day, the problem is staring you in the face and you just don't want to do anything about it because you are benefiting from this problem. I am sure that even as people stand on the steps of that famous Afia house and say, oh yeah, we know we have a problem, there are cartels, they know, maybe they had breakfast with the cartel early in the morning and they're going to have dinner with another person later on in the day. They know where the problem is. They know who is getting an underhand deal here and there. They know who's playing beneath the table. They know. They just don't want to do anything about it. So if anything, it's again reestablishing the fact that if the problems that you face in this country are not being sorted out, it's not because they don't know how or who. They just don't want to. They don't want to. They wanted to, they will sort it out.
They don't want to.
No.
We'll read a letter. This it's been doing the rounds by John Jamue, in which he says, you know what? I have been a law-abiding citizen. I have been paying taxes dutifully, diligently, and timely. But this time, I'm having a problem. I'm having a problem paying my taxes. He's written an open letter and he's addressing it to the president. He says, there are a number of things that I need you to do. Since I earned my first salary up until my present day, I have been a law-abiding and faithful taxpayer. The Commissioner of Domestic Taxes can confirm that. He even goes ahead to say how much he has earned in the last 1 year, how much he needs to pay, how much he's even gone to the KRA payment portal and declared the amount of tax, and he even has a payment slip. But he says, but you know what? I'm not going to remit this. According to the income tax, the deadline is end of this month, today. Instead, I have opened the following dedicated bank account in which I have deposited the said amount held in trust for the people of Kenya unless and until you fulfill the conditions I have listed out down below. He says, I am going to put my tax in a trust account. It's not with me. It's not benefiting me anymore. It's somewhere in a trust account. But Mr. President, I want you to do 3 things. 1, he says, within 7 days, make public the details of the contract between Kenya and the government of Republic of China for the construction of SGR. Within 7 days, you recall and rescind the 4.5 billion shillings car grant that you offered the MCAs. And it says another 7 days. Within the 7 days, announce a timetable for setting up within 90 days of a truth commission to investigate the nature, causes, consequences of corruption in Kenya with powers inter alia to make recommendations for prosecution, asset recovery, illustration, and in appropriate cases, granting amnesty in exchange for truth and return of stolen public funds and assets. Take serious, final, open public action on this vice.
Yeah.
Until you do that, Mr. President, my tax is in that bank account. Don't come ask me for it. It's in that bank account.
Now,
let's take a break at this point.
So I think
wanna
you
say
fuel
goodbye
CT's
to our
argument.
audience. Yeah.
I think you fuel that argument.
heading there. 5 minutes to 9 o'clock. Thank you very much for watching us on KTN Home since 7 a.m. This conversation continues into the next hour. We're here until 10. But on KTN Home, we'll be back on Monday. As we take this break, remind you about jobs.standardmedia.co.ke, a web portal where the Standard Group posts all the jobs that have been advertised by various organizations. You can get in there and subscribe for job alerts today. Very many jobs: manager, strategy and transformation, landscaper, toilet facility manager, industrial garment manufacturing facilitator, field sales rep, packaging, management accountant, host the situation. Huh? John, you're putting this there. Host the situation room. Okay. No, that's not among them. Jobs.standardmedia.co.ke. Log in there. You'll find all the jobs that are listed. See you on Monday, but tune in to SpiceFM for continuation of this conversation.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
Sugar and spice and everything nice, just the way you like it.
The Spice Drive.
Did you have a great day? I hope you did. I intend to make it better from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. I'm going to be taking you home nice and chill. Everyone is welcome aboard. The hashtag is Spice Drive and, of course, SpiceFM KE on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
The Spice Drive with Monique. The official soundtrack of getting you where you need to be. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 90.
All right. So, 3 minutes to 7. So, CT, you heard what I was saying.
To 9.
Did I say 7?
You did.
9. Yeah.
The new 7.
Huh?
7 is the new 7.
Yeah. 9 is the new 7. Or 7 is the new 9. John Jamwe says, I need to see action for me to continue participating and feeling like I am getting value for shilling. Drastic, if you ask me.
It's not drastic. He is making a point, and the point he's making is a valid one. He is taking a step. That is him. He has decided this is what I am going to do. You see, we are not helpless. It isn't as though we are sitting here. The term is sitting ducks, and there's nothing we can do. Oh, no. If you want lofty ideas to bring about change, those are subjects for debate, discussions. If you want to do something, there is always something you can do. The reason why I accepted to be chairman of the board of management of a local school in my neck of the woods was because I felt it was important for me to be involved in my community. Yes. It takes time, it does all sorts of things, but that was my understanding of it. It isn't as though somebody else couldn't have done it. No. There were other people before me. But when I was asked, I gave it thought. Look, there are always things you can do. They may not necessarily be the most comfortable thing. It doesn't often work the way you'd want it. But if you want to be part and parcel of a process that can help bring about change in people's lives, the thing to do is you take the first step. You see, the step in changing people's lives, what you may not know also is a step in changing your life. Because you can't be involved and interact with that sort of thing without it changing you, because you experience things you've never experienced before. You get to understand problems at a community level that you would never have understood. And you also interact with the parents who are part and parcel of that community, and they get to interact with you. So you get to know people you didn't even know before. And because of it, you get to talk to them. So you could say you are actually in tune with the issues that happen in your community. If I wasn't, in all honesty, there are things I wouldn't even know, and they would never get to my doorstep because, well, how on earth would the people whom I live amongst get in touch with me? But with that step, I'm now part and parcel of that community, whether I like it or not.
Now you have a voice.
Not only do I have a voice, they have an avenue. They are at liberty to talk to me as and when they see fit.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's take a break at the top of the hour. Leg cut traffic, and then we'll pick your calls. 0719-012-600. Good morning.
Spice up your life. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Okay, yes, it's still closed, guys. You can't use it. We know they said 29th, but it's been extended for a further 21 days. So you could use Outer Ring. If you're not interested in going to that direction, you can go onto Langata Road and then go on Aerodrome Road. You can go Langata Road, connect to Bagathi Way. We're looking for options here, isn't it? Yes. Or you can use Outer Ring, come out at Thika Road into the CBD. Longer, but probably faster than sitting in that traffic. 21 more days, guys. That's what it looks like. So we're just going to have to stick with this one. Coming off of Thika Road into the city, it looks pretty good for Friday. Jogo Road, that earlier problem is more or less sorted. So traffic is not too terrible there. At least not just for now. We'll keep an eye on things, okay? Let's look at 9:30 or so and see what it looks like. Talk to us in case anything does pop up. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Into the final hour of the show. CT, today's proverb.
Right. A man who chases two rabbits catches neither.
A man who chases two rabbits catches neither.
Yes, if you don't want to catch a rabbit, chase two of them.
Okay. All right. There's another rabbit joke that's been doing the rounds in social media. A priest, a pastor, and a rabbit entered a clinic to donate blood. The nurse asks the rabbit, "What's your blood type?" Says, "I'm probably type O." Now, when it's written, you may be able to get it. I'm probably type O.
I think I get it.
A chief,
TYPO.
a priest, a pastor, and a rabbit. Let's go to the phone lines first. 0719-012-600.
Rabbi.
Victor in Nakuru, good morning.
Morning, Eric. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Today I'm happy. I'm actually number one in calling.
Congratulations.
Last time I tried to call, I didn't get through, but at least I texted you something.
Yes.
This morning, I'm excited about what you're discussing.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, I did say hello. Hello to Eric and to Ndo and City.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir. How are you today?
Morning, guys. I am very well. You can tell how much Vaiga I have to
We
push
can
the issue.
feel the excitement in your voice.
Hey, now, you guys already mentioned something very nice about the corruption we are facing in this country. And it's obvious we know what it is. We know what the problem is. We know what we need to touch. But we just don't. But I look at it this way. The old people in this country, including the leadership that we have, which is the old, have amassed the ill-gotten wealth for so long. And over time, every time somebody else gets into the wagon, he is basically recruited into the corrupt wagon and becomes a foot soldier of protecting the corrupt. So over time, we have failed to punish corruption. So even the youth today are looking forward to getting recruited into the wagon because automatically they acquire that protection. Whether I know Uhuru personally or I know Raila personally or not, I am protected by my neighbor who I don't even know is corrupt. But in every other networking he's doing, he's protecting me in order to protect himself. So if you go to the court, at times you get lost how a case would go in a different direction when it's so obvious it's supposed to nail somebody. The network is we just don't know which one it is. It could be the judge, it could be the clerks there, it could be the cop at the gate. We just don't know who it is because somebody was recruited at some point. So the old wealth will always protect itself. The old ill-gotten wealth will always protect itself. And that's why even the president at times wonders, what do I do? As good as he could be, he employs people, gives them a docket that they should deal with the issue, then automatically the guy just camouflages into something else.
So how do we dismantle this group of the old wealth?
Good question. Now, some time back we were told power is grabbed. And somehow I don't agree. We can't grab power anymore. You just can't go there and start saying Uhuru is gone, it's us now. It's not possible. But if you look at what this ill-gotten wealth is doing to the generation that is upcoming now, they are so disempowered and they have lost direction on how to get this power. So now, number one, we need to vote. Acquire a voter's card. People don't. When it comes to voting, they are probably saying, mimi sitapiga kura tena. You know? And if you look at that person, he's so disempowered to a point of understanding that is his power to become rich without necessarily being corrupt in future. If now I tell you what I think, which is my personal opinion, in regards to what we need to do now to deal with corruption, mine is very radical. We need to actually call it, make it a capital offense.
You know why it sounds like it's radical?
It's difficult.
You know why it sounds like it's so radical? Because nothing has ever been done about it previously. That's why it sounds as though any action you take, or even like we hear from Joy this morning who's saying, you know what, I'm going to hold my taxes. It sounds so radical, something so far from what you would ordinarily do. Because even the simplest action has never been carried out. But what you're going to need to remove something with such far rot is something radical. It's something radical that's necessary.
Well, making that a capital offense be radical enough.
Well, number one,
saying,
it may not.
If you're caught and convicted of corruption, then you're going to spend the rest of your life in jail.
That's number one. It may not deter everybody, but number one, it will deter a number. Because we agree there's still more being recruited into corruption every other day through government tenders. You saw exactly what happened with KEMSA you were talking about this morning. I mean, in short, there are people already recruited in it who are not necessarily even looking forward to becoming the entrepreneurs.
You're only going to punish people who participate in small-time corruption. Well, yes.
Agreed, but we must start somewhere.
That old money network that you're talking about,
yes.
Are you going to deal with it?
No, but you see, the second thing is, we need to remember that this old money is in top leadership. Let's not cheat ourselves. It is in top leadership. Today we want Uhuru to be so radical and actually declare like the Malawian president. But he won't. I don't know why. Do you?
I don't know.
Yes. I do know why. Uhuru is trying to follow the rule of law, and he's trying to ensure that the arms of government do what they do. Then there are those who will say, no, but he controls all of them. And I would say, no, but our constitution actually gives these people the freedom. So is it that are we talking about this culture we have where when someone is a leader, you don't question him, you don't argue with him, you just do what he wants?
What stops him from declaring corruption a national disaster?
Other things have been declared national disaster and they didn't do anything
and
about
it. They've remained national disasters,
But
yes.
Actually, in very many ways, Victor, corruption was declared a national disaster a long time ago.
Right.
That's why you see in every government office, as you enter, there's a signboard. You're entering a corruption-free zone. There's something that they need to do at the end of every year to report how they have fought corruption in their institutions. There's things.
You put a suggestion box there for you to
upload. All those things are there.
But you see now, that was my point number 2 on the issue of leadership. And I think, just to sum it up, Kenyans must agree to just vote out all these leaders completely. It's difficult, but until we get to that point to realize that they are our problem, then we are going nowhere. It's a difficult thing to consume. But if you have somebody who cannot actually declare something and push through to see that it is implemented and that those people who fail to follow the order are taken care of, then you don't have any leadership. That's my thinking.
Thank you very much.
I've seen other people, other places and other countries, it works. Why not Kenya?
That's true.
We are just so docile as the youth or as the young generation, and we are waiting for them to do as they please and hoping that things will get better as we grow. Shortly, you're 50, and your energy to push for anything is gone.
Yeah.
So it's us to stand up now, put these guys out, let's look for new leadership, let them make new goofs, and maybe have new ideas and demands.
Good points. Thank you very much, Victor. Good day.
All right.
What's James Wakibia saying?
James Wakibia says the problem is finding the right person to slay the dragon. In this case, the person who could slay the dragon is a dragon. Of course, without the horns and all that dragony stuff. But doesn't take much to know he's one of them and nothing is changing.
Using the dragon to slay the dragon. Sometimes it works.
Julia Kajituju says the outside of one cell could well be the inside of another. We need to free people from the shackles of materialism. They are languishing in prison. Who's languishing in prison? People are languishing in prison for what they've done for corruption.
Yes.
Enough commensurate to
people who've stolen
the
chicken.
People. The people that she's saying, we need to free the people from the shackles of materialism.
The thing is, we're not even playing musical chairs. This is a ring of roses. We're actually just running around in circles. Look, who are these people who are supposed to bring about change? What are they supposed to do? And we all, 75% of our elected leaders get voted out. So change, we do it. Remember, I asked the provost of All Saints Cathedral, I laid this question to him at a time when he was here, and I asked, okay, do you think the church has played an all-important role in ensuring that they are part and parcel of this fight against corruption and a fight to bring about change? And he gave us his view. Then we had, what was the name of this gentleman who is one of the head clerics of the Islamic faith in our country? I'm trying to remember his name. Is Sheikh. I will remember.
Yeah.
He admitted and said, we are actually not doing enough.
Ibrahim Lithome.
Yes. There's this problem. We aren't really doing enough. It's like we've sat and accepted and said, something, this is the way we are.
This is who we
Just
are.
take us like that.
Yes, and what we will do in our fight against corruption is we'll talk about the fight against corruption.
Yeah.
Yes. And then we'll talk angrily about something that has gone wrong. And then when we're brave enough, we'll even mention
and even
a
breathe
name.
heavily a bit.
Yes, and then speak angrily at a certain individual, and then we'll sit back until something else comes up.
Then
and
we
we
do
can
it
speak
again.
angrily. Yes, because that's what we seem to do. And that's why I'm saying the lofty idea of, let's... If you do not change the way you look at it and understand that there is something anyone and everyone can do, okay? I'm repeating it. Then forget this talk of change. Don't even talk about it. Just put up with whatever's happening to you. Yes. Put up with it. Because everybody talks. Everybody has a view. So essentially, the issue of corruption in our country is something we debate about, and we look at new players to talk about. And then, to feed into the drama, there's always some new scandal that involves the government, and then the same discussion, but then now with this new scandal. Okay? Is it the first time that chairmen of organizations that have problems have been moved? No. Was he moved way before this scandal sort of like blew up and came into the public? No. And then, we have parastatals in this country that unless someone tells you about them, you won't even know they exist.
Yep.
Okay? The chairman of KEMSA, is he taking one of these parastatals? No. Communication authority. That thing is important.
Isn't it?
It's very, very fundamental. So, it's like you're being rewarded for having been chairman of the previous one. Now, we can talk about it. We can talk about it at length. We can discuss the person, look at his history. The truth of the matter is this. The change comes about not at the national level. The change comes about with you, and then you bring change or being part of the change within the ecosystem that you live in. Believe me, it's how it starts. That's why I talked about, I'm going to look for my MCA. I need to find out who this person is. Yes, because I am part of that group of people who just talk about it. So I want to change. I want to find out who my MCA is. I'll even make a point of finding out who my chief is.
And start engaging them.
I'm certainly going to engage. And then I'll look for my MP and talk to my MP. Yes, I'm going to.
Let's take a look at the weather, and then we pick your call. 0719-012-600. Is changing the boards a solution to the problems at KEMSA and the health sector in general? A comment from Robert Kipkemoi. We're going to read that as we come back out of this break. Let's also see many of your comments coming in on social media. SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. 17 minutes after 9. Good morning. Thank you.
The political class, the contestants, everybody is trying to outsteal the other.
Remorse is not taught in any school. Manners is something you get from your mother. You don't get it from your political party.
Why are we so unfocused as a country? Why are we spending money and resources? Yet we have real challenges in this country.
This coronavirus pandemic should teach us one thing, that universal healthcare is critical. Because at this point, whether you have a medical card that covers you, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
All right, so still looking at a few clouds in Nairobi. It's raining in some parts of the city. We've got highs of 26 today and lows of 17. Light rain also in Nyeri at 18, highs of 25, lows of 15. Mostly sunny conditions in Nakuru at 18 degrees, highs of 26 and lows of 15. We'll see highs of 26 in Eldoret, where it's mostly cloudy at 18 at the moment. Mostly cloudy conditions in Kisumu at 23. 23 also in Kakamega, cloudy and going to highs of 29. It continues to rain in Mombasa at 28, highs of 30. Same thing in Malindi, light rain, highs of 30. Kampala is raining as well at 20, highs of 27. We're experiencing light rain in Dar es Salaam, highs of 30 and lows of 25. It's also raining in Johannesburg at 12, highs of 16. Mostly cloudy conditions in Lagos at 25, highs of 32. Highs of 31 in Kinshasa. It's raining at 24. It's sunny in Beijing at 14, highs of 15 and lows of 4. And sunny conditions in Paris at 7, highs of 14 and lows of 7. And 5 degrees in London. It's sunny today, highs of 12 and lows of 3. And coming into Friday morning, it's 18 degrees and cloudy. There's a high chance of rain in New York, highs of 20 and lows of 6.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
20 minutes after 9. So let's look at the comments on social media, and then we'll keep the calls. 0719-012-600.
All right. So Open Brain says, no, Kenyans need to stop pouring new wine into old skins. So that's an issue there. Robert Kimboy says, okay, so we talked about if you know the dragon, have information about where it is and armed to the teeth with information on how to eliminate it, and finally fail to make the move, then you are either a friend of the dragon or another dragon yourself. Okay. Victor says people are still suffering. Even if they recover the stolen money, it won't help us with anything. They will use this for their own benefit. CT, I disagree with you on this one. That's what Winnie says. The president decides to respect the law when it is convenient. History tells us that. Prove me wrong. He has the power to do otherwise, and he can do it. Look at the Malawian president. I posted that video a few weeks ago in terms of who he fired from his cabinet. James Wakibia says, the problem of corruption is so entrenched. Only a revolution can save us. Not even declaring it a national disaster will work. It hasn't. Hiyo ni kuongea tu.
Yeah, so people have been talking about what the president of Malawi did recently. What did he do?
So he fired quite a number of people in his cabinet because of corruption of allegations. Allegations.
Right.
And he said, come and go home. We're not even going to deal with this right now. We're not even going to deal with I was maybe where I shouldn't have been and then this happened upon me. No. It smells like a duck. It walks like a duck. It's not a goose.
Out. We've seen that done here. That has been done here publicly. The president addressed parliament and he said, I'm so serious about fighting corruption. I've been told that some members of my government, direct appointees, are being investigated. For that reason, out. How many did he fire? More than 10 people. Cabinet secretaries, principal secretaries, fired.
And?
We're having a conversation today.
You know, Eric keeps talking of the examples that leadership should set. You see, that caused a bit of a problem. Because if you look at the examples that our leaders set, those are examples you don't want to follow. Okay? But people still follow those examples. You know why? Because those bad examples are in the public domain so often and for so long that they've been normalized. It's like this is how
it becomes
leaders...
cosmetic.
Yes.
Yeah, there's Dante on the line. Dante.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning to you.
Okay, guys. I think we're Kenyans. And I think Pete would agree with me that when you have a good friend who does something bad, as Kenyans, we always take the back seat. We always don't want to tell a good friend that you're doing something bad. And I think our president, as much as so many people like him and they say he's trying to do the best for the country, we all know that he's a good friend who's not doing something right for this country. And I think it will get to a time where the citizenry really has to step up. And I like the conversation on the second stage of our conversation, because I think it's up to the citizens to finally rise up. I don't know how it's going to be done, maybe on social media or taking to the streets, but it has to be done. Because if we look at just the corona money, we're talking about 700 billion shillings given to us since March last year, which we can't account for. And that's just corona money.
Yeah.
So this is a good friend who is just taking us to the wrong direction. But since we respect and love this friend, we find it hard to tell this friend, please, sir, where you're taking us is not...
Why do you find it hard to tell your friend the truth as you know it?
If I could answer that question, I think we could solve a lot of problems in this country.
Why? Do you know why you don't tell your friend? My view. It's because you expect that when you do something crazy, your friend also wants to tell you off. It's a trade-off.
Could be that.
It's a scratch my back, I scratch your back.
Well, in this case, don't
maybe
scratch.
I did something bad and you're covering me.
Yeah. You'll also cover for me.
But I think at the end of the day, it's up to us, as you say, the citizenry, to really, really, really look at what is working and not what is not working. And as we were talking about this conversation, we should also look at 2022 and try and elect the for this country. better people who will take us forward and maybe be the change we need.
Dante, I want to ask you a question, if I may. Eh?
Please do.
Wherever it is you come from, do you actually believe that the voters who come from there will be willing to elect someone who doesn't give them money?
No, that's impossible.
Okay, precisely. Now, so if you have a candidate who you can see is somebody who actually has, because you know this person, you've seen what they've done, you feel this person, if they're in leadership, they would be able to bring change. That person is out of the equation. So when you talk about your own participation, if you could elect someone who you believe would be able to actually do what you require, then you have done something. But we don't. You still want to elect somebody who gives you money. So when we talk about the public being able to do something, there's a lot we can do, but we choose not to.
Yeah, and the saddest thing is that the elite who really go for the wrong guys. When you look at the ground, most people down there can actually vote for somebody who can bring change.
Who are these elite and who are these ground
guys?
If you look at Nairobi, for instance, people are voting in somebody like Sonko. You see, this is somebody everybody knows won't bring change. You see, so you expect Nairobi to be leading
who voted
on voting. Over 1 million.
Was it the elite or was it the 190? Ground.
No, if you look at Nairobi and just say as a capital city, we are the people who are supposed to be, in the forefront of bringing change. And it doesn't happen in Nairobi. So once it doesn't happen in Nairobi, it's very hard for the other areas to really catch up.
Do you want to tell me, Dante, that the people in some constituency in Kwale, in Kilifi, in Bika County, they vote according to how the elite in the urban areas vote?
Not really.
Okay, so Nairobi, for instance, has only 17 constituencies.
Yes.
The country has 290 constituencies.
Yes.
Out of those 290, let's allocate Nairobi, Mombasa, Nakuru, and the others 50 constituencies. Explain to me how the 240 MPs are elected. Are they the best crop?
They are not.
So?
They are not. But how big Nairobi is this? When folks come to Nairobi and they see that Nairobi is not clamoring for the change, when they go back to Bundus, they don't also see that change coming. But if we started in Nairobi and we vote in good people, I believe after some time the whole country will see if Nairobi is doing this, then we should do something better.
I think you're going to wait a long time for that one.
If Nairobi sneezes, the country catches the cold.
No. The Nairobi will sneeze, the country will catch the cold or not.
But I'd rather go where city was going. Let's take it to the MCAs, the smallest devolved unit, and start from there.
And
if we started from there, I think we'll start with medication for this illness which is affecting our country.
Thank you, Dante. Have a lovely day.
Same.
Cheers.
Comments?
Quite some. All right. Okay.
Thomas.
Cities. It's Thomas. In every battle, there must be a commander leader to rally the rest along. We lack this in Kenya regarding the fight against graft. And James also goes back to say it's intricate and needs an uprising. An uprising needs to happen. Deritu Muravi says, the solution is simple. Remove all the middlemen, tenderpreneurs. Let all the companies doing business with the government register with CBK and all the monies. And all government employees to use 3 banks accredited by the government. Well, okay.
They've already done all that.
I'm sure they have more than one account.
That is all done.
Everybody who trades with government has a bank account, and that bank is regulated by the CBK.
Yes. All of them do that. Yeah. Basic requirements, they all meet, except
they have met all the requirements.
Even that firm which had just been registered a month before it got the tender, it meets those requirements.
Meets everything. Ed Getonga, good morning.
Morning to you guys. How are you doing?
Good.
Very well.
No, there is a point that I would agree with Dante in a way. That point of Nairobi or a certain part of the country can influence the type of leader that another place can elect. Okay, I'm gonna be very quick before I go to my next point. For example, if you go to case in point, maybe let's say Machakos, and you see that Machakos County is working, and this guy wants the presidential seat, and I've seen what he has done in Machakos, or I've seen what he has done in Mombasa. When you go back home to the rural area, you're gonna be like, hey, you guys, you've not seen Machakos. You guys, you've not seen this place. You need to see this place to see that this person can do this. That is one way that development of one place can influence the type of leader or leaders that a country can elect.
Okay. So, give an example. A living example.
Not in Kenya.
Okay. We were waiting with bated breath.
Okay, go to your second point then.
He's gone.
Ed, gone. Okay.
But let me ask this question, even as Ed is gone, all right? What Dante was saying, if you are talking about a leader, for instance, let's give the example. Are Kenyans ready to vote for Njonjo Mue? This man has written a book on. He's been speaking on this social injustice. He's been speaking about this subject for a long time.
Yeah.
He even talked about prayer, okay, for the salvation, okay,
of the country.
Yes,
and
he
he
even
went
said
alone to Uhuru Park.
To Uhuru Park, yes. So
people didn't even
tied himself to a monument.
Yes.
Yes.
So people are talking about, well, we want this new leader. There are people who come out. He's leading by talking and doing what he believes. And what will people say? No. You're looking for that person who will bribe you.
He's not charismatic.
You will find reasons. You will find reasons. You will find reasons.
Yeah. Will he get votes in his backyard?
No. First of all, where does he come from? Why doesn't he go and get voted there first? Now,
9:30. Let's take a break, take a look at the traffic, and then we will switch conversations a little bit into the next final half of the show. Good morning.
There's so many people peddling what is false and that it bears remarkable resemblance to what is true.
Politicians have their agenda, and their agenda is to use every opportunity to sell that agenda and to loot this nation.
I have seen major strides that are done in this country when we talk to each other as against talking at each other.
We start getting back into the tribal cocoons which were put to us by the colonial powers. You know, they gave us physical freedom but not mental freedom. We're still mentally colonized today into these cocoons of tribe.
Now, if you live in an area where it's difficult to find a dog,
he's a goat. I kid you not.
In which part of this country is it difficult to find a dog? So that you resort. Nafande hii umbo yako iko na
hii ni umba special.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Okay, not too terrible in these Nairobi streets, looking all right. Also looking out into Mombasa, traffic has been doing very well in terms of people getting in and out of town. Same thing in Nakuru, moving out west towards Kisumu. Looks like it's going to be a manageable Friday across the country. Things are settling down, at least to a dull roar in Nairobi. Hope it doesn't get too much crazier than that, but we will keep an eye on things. Mombasa Road is going to be that hotspot throughout the day, so we need to keep an eye out for this. Also, Thika Road, coming off Thika Road, probably towards the afternoon, it'll pick up some. But, so plan ahead and be ready in case you're going into one of those hot areas. All right, SpiceFM KE through the day on Twitter. You can text on 40127. Make sure you're in the know. Traffic.
Welcome to Spice FM, the best exclusive radio station bringing you the best mix of the best music ever. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
9 o'clock, the conversation continues. So let's take a moment and look back into the life and times of journalists who's being described as the bad boy of Kenyan journalism, possibly ahead of his time. Here is another one being calling him the baddest of the badass journalists. This is what Mutuma Matthew, the editorial director at The Nation, says today. And, all of them are basically describing the one man. Another article here in The Nation talks about Ochieng's work, spoke of a language genius, understanding wordsmith Philip Ochieng's addiction to literature. Philip Ochieng is a journalist who was a veteran journalist, died earlier this week at the age of, how old was he again?
83.
83. I'm sure one of those stories has described him as the man who stood like a colossus. These words have to be used.
Yes, for sure.
Peter Moora, the public editor at The Nation, described him. I first got to know of him when I was a student in the 1960s while we were hurrying up and down from one lecture room to another or to the library. Philip Ochieng could often be seen basking happily on the grassy quadrangle, glorified as the great court in front of the library building, which is now the UNES bookstore of the University of Nairobi. Invariably, he was seen chatting up some pretty girls with a packet of sportsman cigarettes laid in front of him. Mutuma Matthew starts by saying at exactly 5 p.m. he would rise to his feet, a slim man without a speck of fat in his tall frame, immaculately encased in the best tailoring in the world, the suit. A Savile Row, naturally, maybe a grey pinstripe with a Paisley handkerchief. His tie neatly clasped to his shirt chest high, his sleeves held back at the elbow with silver thingies. The cuffs never folded. You could apply makeup with his shoes. They gleamed like mirrors. Croquets and Jones, maybe. The type that are made to fit and to last. Describing the man in very many words.
He will be remembered as a stickler for precision of expression. His felicity of diction was second to none. And this is an article that was in the Standard today, written by Barack Muluka. And he talks about the fact that he found kindred company in Tanzania, where scholars like Issa Shivji, Walter Rodney, and other intellectuals. Julius Nyere's Dar es Salaam was the hub of African liberation and the nursery of African experimentation with free thinking. Free thinking meant socialist leading thought, and Ochieng enjoyed good fellowship with people like Benjamin Kappa, who was then the editor-in-chief of the state-owned Daily News. He worked for Daily News for some time before leaving Tanzania for Europe. His relocation was a factor of what has sometimes been ultra-nationalism amongst Tanzanians, often laced with a sense of xenophobia, especially against Kenyans. It will be recalled that Tanzania had by then closed the border with Kenya after the collapse of the East African community in the same year. And it was around these subjects that Ochieng often wrote, hoping that people would understand the dynamism of the relationship between the two countries. In those travels, he found himself doing a stint with the United Nations before returning home after things had thawed. He got a job with the Daily Nation as a sub-editor and later grew to be the chief sub-editor and eventually managing editor. His colleagues remember him, as you've said, Eric, as a soft-spoken, elegantly attired intellectual. They recall him as a gentleman in word and deed. His pen was sharp and lethal. But it was also an honest pen. He repeats. It, however, took a new turn during the period 1988 to 1991 when he served as the managing editor of the KANU-owned Kenya Times. The paper adopted a brazen editorial policy of apologizing for an overbearing state. And he was at the center of a lot of these narratives that were then written.
He also authored a book, and the book is called I Accuse the Press, in which he was saying, okay, he was basically one person who really championed press freedom. And by freedom, he meant freedom. In this book, I Accuse the Press, he says he resigned from the Nation in December 1981 because I abdicated all responsibilities or editorial policy and production to the then managing director, Dougal Lisbeth Smith. Philip was the bad boy of Kenyan journalism who was probably ahead of his time. He writes in the book that when he was the chief sub-editor between 1979 and 1981, the use of English was so bad that I often offered to conduct a basic English grammar course for everybody. Then later he came up and he was given the column Mark My Word by the later managing editor of group managing editor Wangathi Mwangi at The Nation. That column Mark My Word was published until recently. One of the people who must have worked with Philip, must have faced Philip's wrath at some point or other, is Komchetsi Makoha. And he's with us on the line now. Good morning, Komchetsi.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Situation Room. Good to have you again on the show.
Thank you.
So first, off the bat, just tell us your experience, your interactions with the late Philip Ochieng.
Sorry, please go again.
Your interactions with the late Philip Ochieng, the first time that you interacted with him.
No, I met him in the newsroom. I was still a newbie myself in the newsroom, and then he joined The Nation as revice editor. Of course, now by the time he was coming in, we were all very suspicious because he had a fairly colorful history as editor-in-chief at Kenya Times. Unfairly, though, because a lot of people used to blame the Kanu briefs that were done by Kenya Times on Philip, but actually they'd been done before, after he left. Nonetheless, we were all very suspicious of Philip, but then he came in as revised editor, and he was just this very warm, charming, humorous fellow. And we all just discovered the humanity that he carried around him, on with him. And then we got a chance. I personally then got a chance to just imbibe from him, from his knowledge, his learning, his love for books, his love for reading and knowledge.
That part about his love for reading, it said that he had very many books, and well, if you just followed the column Mark My Word and the kind of language that he would use, was that the kind of language that he'd use on a daily, day-to-day basis?
Sorry, Eric, you have to say that again.
Was that the kind of language that you'd use on a day-to-day basis? You know, the language and the vocabulary that you'd use in Mark My Word?
Philip was, I think, easy around language. He had become comfortable, and those who follow the politics of language know that even if you have great ideas, but you don't have the facility to express them, then those ideas sometimes can just remain in your head. And so he placed great emphasis on language and interacting with language from a place of competence. And because he was so confident in terms of interacting with language, of course, a lot of people don't know that Philip also went to Sorbonne in France and was proficient in French. And he also worked in Tanzania and was very proficient in Kiswahili. So it wasn't just, a lot of us focus on his English, but this was a global view journalist who could understand and interact with texts in Kiswahili, in English, and in French. And really for him, language was just a facility for expressing ideas. And those ideas, his curiosity, his intellectual curiosity, as you correctly mentioned, is apparent from the books that he would refer to. He would use books or the ideas in books as his crutches for the arguments that he was making.
What did you learn from him, Komchetsi? I mean, he was a journalist, but then he was a teacher through a lot of what he reported and what he wrote. What did you learn from him, and what can others learn?
The biggest lesson I learned from Philip was intellectual honesty. Being yourself, just having the integrity to be yourself. Philip was completely unapologetic about the fact that he was a technology idiot. He only learned to use the computer, I think, in the late 90s. He couldn't drive. So those are some of the things that. But he was very honest about his weaknesses, just the way he was also honest about his ideas, his doubts about religion, his questions about those things, and he enabled me in terms of just himself leading by example. He taught that it's possible to be honest and be a journalist. That intellectual honesty was actually the highest hallmark of journalism. that you can't flip flop. You can't be on this side today and on the other side today. Be that as it may, and you remember Philip was one of those people who very vociferously argued against the introduction of multi-parties. He was also very large-hearted in the sense that he was the first one to admit when he had been wrong. That is, I think, one of the greatest things I admire about him.
Will we have more, from what you see? Is it possible to birth more of that kind here in this neck of the woods, and at least have something to hope for when it looks at that kind of honesty, what you're calling, and then, in the trade of journalism, using the pen to be honest? Can we have more?
Yes, we can, and I think we already are, but I think it's to begin to build institutions around people like Philip Ochieng, to preserve his memory and to explore his ideas a lot further, to think through some of the things that he had begun to grapple with. He was grappling with issues of media ownership and control. He was grappling with issues of dictatorship, authoritarian regimes. Just this morning, I was just thinking that one of the most remarkable things he surfaced in this book, I Accuse the Press, was how the West was reporting Africa. And he was completely violently opposed to the way that the West would.
Issues with the line? Oh, come on. Unfortunately, some technical issue here with the line with Komchatsi Makoha and the link as well. System issues.
Ugh. It's getting good.
System issues that the audio gets down. But we're really glad to have heard Komchatsi telling us about, about Philip, about... It's not just about Philip the man or what he stood for or what, he really championed. It's about advocating media freedom and the best of journalism, how best to tell a story.
Right. And
how do you best tell a story?
And being unapologetic about truths that that are there, that you would not be afraid to tell a story in a particular way just because of who the subject of your story would be or the subject matter therein. To say that, we're going to speak about this honestly, we're going to speak about this and use the positions that we have to make sure that, the story and the information is getting out there. Because, he wrote stories, he talked about issues, he brought about things that spanned geographical location, Kenya, Tanzania, in Europe, talked about matters that needed to be addressed within country, across the globe, and was not saying sorry to anybody for having those opinions.
Yep.
And would hope that he would influence others to do the same.
Monday is World Press Freedom Day. And World Press Freedom Day this year is going to be themed Information as a Public Good. Now, if we look at that and CT, information as a public good, what various journalists, veterans such as Philip Ochieng, those that have been there as well, others like Peter Mwaura, who's now public editor at The Nation, and others who have worked in these media houses, and looking at the present crop of not just journalists, but people who are in the information space. Are we increasingly getting to a place where information is being used for public good? Or is information and public good being considered two things that are poisoning one another?
No, they're interacting quite interestingly, I would say, especially in the realm of social media. You see, the evolution of information consumption as we see it has led us to a point where all we keep talking about is, how should I put it, the changes that are being brought about by our ability to communicate. When somebody refers to this century as the information age, how very right they were. How very, very right they are. Because if you talk about journalists, they're at the heart of it. And much as journalism has evolved and continues to evolve, they're still at the heart of it. Because they are the purveyors of information, they're the purveyors of stories, they're the purveyors of what it is that we consider to be everyday happenings in our lives. Yes. Now, people like Philip Ochieng, from everything that I've read about him, contributed significantly to this space. Because when somebody contributes to a trade that he has plied for as long as he has with his own life and the way he goes about applying that particular life and the freedoms he believes in his work, then the contribution is almost incalculable. You can't really say this is what he has contributed. What you know is that he has contributed greatly. But then he then joins other greats, other people who in their contribution have also done the same thing. Whether it was writing and opposing a system they didn't like, taking a position that other people were not particularly comfortable with. You see, we always talk about the Mageuzi movement, people bring about change and so forth. But you see, there are those who didn't particularly want change. There are people who felt that what we had could be adjusted to actually suit us in the future. I'm saying their position helped further this in this sense. They took a position. Taking a position was the useful thing that they did. And they made the debate about change even that more vibrant, because there are people who, they were advocating for something and they stood by it, and others didn't subscribe to what they were saying and they stood by what they did. Contribution doesn't have to be a one-way street. No. And it never is.
It can never be.
No.
It can never be.
No.
But I think the whole issue of, taking a stand. You take a stand on something and you stand by that and you publicly speak about it, and every opportunity you get, you say, this is my stand on this particular issue and this is what I think about it. It helps a society.
Oh, for sure. I think, having a position and being clear about it, and so that nobody has to ask, okay, which side are you on? And if you're in a position of influence, how much better is it that you can use that position to talk about the stand that you take? I mean, only assuming that it is one that has its honor, then why not? And I think, unfortunately, we have seen that over time, this has been watered down. That positions have not been taken, especially on things that then, affect the country as a whole, and say, this is the position that I take. I would hope that others would then, resonate with that position. Unfortunately, that has watered down some, and positions sometimes have not been clear.
I don't know, it just dovetails into the conversation we were having earlier, where CT was saying, you know what, unless we all take a position on something, unless we all rise up and say, this is what I believe in and this is what I think should happen, then start having those conversations. Engage from a point of, my position is this, let me hear your position. I'm willing to change my position if I hear some positive points or some points that can persuade me to change my position, but I have to come to this particular table with a position. I can't just come blank. I can't wake up every morning and I'm just, okay, so I'm awake because the sun rose.
It's like my position is, I'm a Kenyan, okay, and my position is, I know who the people to blame for my problems, and what can you do? Well, I'm blaming people who are behind my problems.
Yeah.
That is what I'm doing.
That's the most I can do.
Yes. Now, journalism is an interesting frontier. I'm saying it's an interesting frontier because whenever you think and speak about change, journalism and the people in it, or the media, are usually at the heart of it. What you say, how you say it, how you present it, because it's you who determines the proliferation. And when people say they blame the media, they're not wrong, because the media does influence people significantly. The media, and I say this in its entirety, they do influence, and for many people, for the longest time, if something was written in the papers, it was true. If you heard it on KBC, it was true. KBC had spoken. I read it in the paper. And your reference point was the newspaper, and you spoke about it as though the matter was sacrosanct.
Yeah.
You could not in any way entertain doubt as far as that was concerned.
Yeah.
Now, in modern times, we've also seen how that those who've been able to challenge and help spear change have been same media. So, if you were a big player in that particular sphere, then clearly you really were someone who contributed significantly to whatever else that you can be talking about and saying represents the good in this country. Yes.
It's people who have done things, and even in present day, there are people who are taking a stand, people who are deciding to take action, people who are not sitting back. Those people that we just like to dismiss offhandedly as, just an activist, just a noisemaker, he's a rabble rouser. He's somebody who's constantly on social media, he's just a keyboard warrior. What they are always just talking about one thing or the other. Their job is just to sit back, complain, and what action are they taking? Maybe just step back and look at what they're doing.
Eric, remember yesterday, there's something you mentioned, and I thought about it at length. Yeah? We were talking about a senior counsel, Ngatia, and the complaints he had with regards to... And I thought, Eric really has brought a very interesting point. But you see, thinking about it more, it's not just... This one didn't open up a can of worms. It opened up a completely new direction, should we say multi-directional conversation. One about how is it that, one, processes that are being taken about, that are being undertaken in supposed confidence, okay, is not as confident or as confidential as we imagine. That is one. Number two, the reality of an understanding that when it is suggested or spoken of that some wrong was done, that wrong can get done. Okay? And my mind went to, how far can this go? Because whenever people speak, this is a senior counsel, one doesn't often hear. In fact, apart from the cases he's been involved in, he's not somebody one reads about every day. But we know about him because of the cases he's been involved in.
Yeah.
So you ask yourself this simple question. If someone of this nature can speak about something of this sort and take any permission that you see fit, the depths to which our problems actually exist are profound. It then means that you can no longer take anything at face value, even when... True? That really is what it boils down to. What then can you take at face value?
That everything that happens here is there's something else happening.
Now,
what you see is not
really it. There's always something else. Now, is that a position that I would like to perpetually be in with regards? Can something not happen and I can say, due process was followed and this is a good thing?
Yeah, it's perfectly in order.
Yes.
I trust the process.
Because it casts a shadow on everything. Well, it helps cement what we already believe in, that whenever decisions are made, you feel it's like, okay, so what exactly is happening here? And you're not asking it in a good way. Okay.
Because you're actually perplexed and confused.
No. You're asking, what are they planning? What is taking place? And yet, for all that we know, you see, due process may have been followed. But once that shadow is cast, just think of what else it'll cover once it is cast.
Many things. Very many things. Derito Murithi says, we are not there yet. So long as the middle class is cocooned in their bubble, nothing will ever happen. All we can do is push for laws that will enforce convictions in the hope of deterring future theft.
So he's hoping that it gets better in the future.
As long as you
sit
comfortably.
But not doing something about it now. Hoping that it gets better later.
As long as the people who have a critical mass are not doing much right now.
But look at our thinking. I am one of the people who didn't think that our cyber warriors would ever get a response from IMF. They did. They did. Now that opened a whole new frontier of reality for me. That these very things that you think cannot happen can actually happen.
They can happen.
Yes.
All right. Let's conclude the week, CT.
Right.
Proverb.
A man who chases two rabbits catches neither.
Maybe some grass.
So if you want to catch a rabbit, chase one. If you don't want to catch a rabbit,
chase two.
Yes. Either to coming across to this particular problem, I thought just don't do anything about rabbits, but chase two. You will catch neither.
If you don't want to catch anything, I'll be chase two rabbits.
Guaranteed.
Thank you very much for tuning in to the situation we're in today this week. Join us again next week for Monday to Friday. God willing. do a coffee together and have a party with me. I love it. Sugar and spice. That's what DJ absolutely. 3 and then Barbara 7. And tomorrow we have Double O what? Double O Direct. Mid-morning. Lovely show on the weekend. By women. For women. Everything is all. Have a lovely weekend, folks. And we hope to see you again. Good morning. 9 o'clock.